Good evening, everyone. It is now 6 p.m. and the October 10th regular council meeting will come to order. This meeting should have occurred on October the 3rd, but was delayed to give the city and citizens time to reverse all the preparations that were made in light of a possible hurricane. Before we begin, please join me in a moment of silence for all those that lost their lives, their loved ones, their pets, or their homes to Hurricane Ian. Thank you. Now rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Gentry, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Leslie Notero.
Here.
Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Zabel.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Interim City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. Thank you, Patty. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve. Motion is made by Frank Bankert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Leslie Notero. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
Jody Shirley. Please make it known that Jody Shirley opposes.
I would like to consider adding an opportunity to discuss the city manager position. It's kind of been left out on the agenda, and it's an ongoing open item that needs to be addressed.
Are you making a motion to amend the agenda?
I am.
I'll second that. Okay. It's kind of out of procedure the way we did it, but I will allow it. All in favor to amend the agenda as suggested?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move forward with the amended agenda. What we'll do is we'll add item number 20. Let's see here. We will move that to item number 24. And then we will move unfinished business to 25 and 26 will be the council comments. So we're just going to call the agenda item number 24, discussion of city manager search. That work for you, Mr. Moore?
Yes, Mayor, it does.
All right, great. All right, we're on to item number 2, which is citizen comments. If any citizen would like to address the council about a topic not already on the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. We ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Would anyone like to make a comment? Yes, sir. Please come up to the podium and give us your name and your address.
How you doing? Randy Levis, 13th Street. First of all, I'd like to say kudos to Mike Zabel. In all my years of following politics locally, he's the most proactive local official I've ever seen. Between the newsletters, emails, office hours, everything else, I mean, it's terrific. I mean, we have access now, direct access constantly that we can get in touch with our community leaders, okay? I think you've given everyone something to aspire to. I really say thank you. Getting to the points I want to bring up, a few years ago, a couple of years, 2-3 years ago, I came here and I complained about the benches on 12th Street access, okay? We used to have 6. Then they upgraded the benches with these new resin benches, whatever, they're nice. But we went down to 3, okay? And they put a garbage can right where one of the benches was on the left-hand side. And they built a big sand dune up on the left-hand side towards the shower. So really, if you want to go with your wife or somebody and sit on the bench, you're going to be looking through a hunk of sand with weeds, okay? We need more benches up there. Some nights it's very crowded and we end up standing, behind the bench benches and everything. I don't know why you can't get three more benches up there. And I brought it up at that time. There's 6 benches sitting out here. I never see anybody on the side right there. So steal 3 of these and put them up there if it costs too much. Okay. You need a bike rack or something up there. Perhaps in the very first space on the right-hand side, a little bike rack. People come biking up to the easement, and they take their bikes and they chain them to the back of the benches with the handlebars sticking over into the bench area. So of the 3 that are there, and the 2 of them you can only see, you can't really half the time sit there because there's bicycles leaning up against there. Maybe there should be something to do with a simple bike rack that would help. Okay. 2-3 years ago, I came to a meeting, and there was a big presentation here about adding one of these, I guess, ad valorem taxes or something, and the fire department from Indian Rocks Beach was here in mass, and the chief was here, and they made this big spiel about, you know, instead of, to help us out with paramedics and whatever over on our side, instead of taking 10 or 15 minutes to dispatch somebody from Indian Rocks Beach and bring them up here, you know, they were going to raise our taxes, and they were going to buy this building on the corner down here. Every time I go by there, all I see is Hispanic guys there loading grass and weeds and stuff in the back of trailers. It looks like they're running a lawn service out of there. I really want to know, did we ever buy that building? Was that building ever bought as it was supposed to be a substation, I think they called it. And then the big spiel was if you get a heart attack on 13th or 14th, they're a minute away instead of coming all the way from Indian Rocks Beach. So they raised our taxes, and I don't see any fruits of our investment. What happened with that building? Did we ever buy that building?
Thank you, Mr. Levitz. We generally do not respond directly to citizen comments. This will give us time to think about your question.
Okay, that's
Contact
fine.
you later or at the end of the meeting.
That's fine. Okay, my other
I'm
comment...
sorry, sir, you're out of time. Thank you very much.
That's it?
3 minutes.
Okay. They're doing it again, okay? They're doing it again. You should be aware of that. Raising the taxes, and we're not going to get anything out of it again.
All right, now we're on to item number 3, which is the law enforcement report from Pinellas County.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, citizens, Deputy Steve Clappy for the record. First off, I want to apologize. I do not have a report for the Sheriff's Office activity. I thought there was going to be a sergeant here this evening, but I will double check on that and get it back to you all. As far as code enforcement, again, another busy month. Keep it busy with a lot of violations, and the nice thing is that people are now really complying in a shorter period of time, getting things completed. One of the other things that Kyle's going to be bringing up, we met with Commissioner Roberts, my supervisor, Sergeant Jason Stiver, Laura, and myself for a little meeting dealing with the code enforcement issues. I think it went very well. I think Kyle's going to speak about that later on this evening. Other than that, everything's going well. I will tell you that my messages on my phone have pretty much stopped, so evidently we must be doing something out there correctly because we're not getting too many complaints out there. So that's my report, and I'll stand for any questions.
Council? Yes, Vice Mayor Gunn.
How's it going tonight?
Good, how are you?
I looked at the monthly code enforcement report. 6 out of 28 line items, 21% of them reference ordinance 22-34.
Okay.
It's typically an on-view event, and there's no explanation there. I had to go into the codes and look it up to see exactly what it is. Just for the edification of everybody and our viewers and the council, could you just specify what that is and why the focus and what you're seeing that basically...
Yes, that deals with mainly landscaping, brush, trees. If I get again, we have a lot of vacant lots here that are overgrown, so what I will do is I'll get with either Laura or Kyle and find out who the property owner is, and then what we'll do is we'll make a notification to them and have those issues taken care of. Usually they're done pretty quick We do have a couple little issues. One is out on, I believe it's 6th Street, where there's a house that is vacant. It's in probate. The homeowner had passed. And I'm trying to get a hold of somebody in the family to take care of some vegetation, mainly trees growing over onto the properties next door to that one location. And it does take a little bit of time because, again, trying to get a hold of a contact or actually talk to a family member. In this particular case, I have left 2 messages with the daughter of the mom who owned that house, and she hasn't returned my phone calls. So our next step is we're just going to show violation and then cite the homeowner and then go from there. Other issues that we're seeing is I'll give you an example up on Donato. I have one house up there that has brush or bushes taller than 8 feet, trying to get them. Again, most of these people are out of state. Try to make contact either with the property manager or whoever's handling that property and try to get them to take care of those issues. But all in all, it's been pretty successful, and some of those complaints have been dwindled down.
Any other questions? Mike Sable?
Yeah, go back to hurricane, we had some power outages. I think it was what, 5th or 6th Street we had some, or, because there is a banyan tree, probably the largest tree in Bel Air Beach, that basically has surrounded, encapsulated power lines going through there. That thing has to be cut, period. Coming from Maryland, you have to do proactive cutting. This tree has caused power outages before, and it's got to be stopped. You got to stop the tree before it does it again.
Right.
Do you know about this giant banyan tree?
No, I do not, but I can look into it. But I will tell you, with Duke Energy, there was one house up on 15th, we had the same problem, where they cleared out a lot. The people that actually were clearing the lot had to stop because they had to get a permit from Duke Energy before they proceed any further because of the actual trees growing into the lines itself.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that that's been going on for a month, and it's still, from what I understand, the permit has not been approved by Duke Energy.
This one's got to be stopped. You got that, plus you got power lines that are about 10 foot off the ground. I mean, I went over there, I got photos on Sunday. So we've got to get a game plan to adjust this before residents lose power again.
Is it in the easement with Duke Energy?
I don't know, we'll
Because
find out.
they'll come out and they'll assess the tree, they'll trim it.
Yeah, because this one really got to be cut back. I mean, banyan, you're talking at least 80 foot. It's huge.
Okay.
And I believe the property that it's on has renters on it. Additional complexity, but I'm sure we can do it.
Yeah, because there was one that, there was a Australian pine that we finally had taken out. That one we finally got taken out, and that took a little bit of time.
You're a legend with that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you very much.
But yeah, we'll look into it, sir.
Okay, appreciate it.
You say you had a tree removed?
Yes.
For what reason?
2 reasons. Number one, there was a nuisance because those Australian pines, the needles come off. It was actually on a property owner's side, and because of the needles that were falling, it was going through somebody else's screen through their pool, and she had that taken care of within about 2 weeks.
Well, I've been, excuse my French, bitching about an Australian or Norfolk pine for at least 4 months now on 80, I think it's 5 Harbor Drive. It's got to be at least 85 feet tall. And it has done damage to a neighbor's pool screen. 3 neighbors have complained about it. One of them just moved. The mayor's been out on that site. It's leaning. There was an arborist out on that site. He said it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. But I don't see any citing or issue with it.
Okay, and what was the address on
I
that?
believe it's 805. It's a vacant lot. There was a house there. They tore the house down probably 5 years ago.
Councilmember, I'll address this. This is the 805 Harbor.
Yeah.
So with the Australian pine, we acted on that immediately because it's on the noxious weed list with the state. So per the code, it was a violation. I did speak with Duke Energy about the claim that they were going to remove that tree. That's not accurate. Apparently, a resident called Duke Energy out to assess a tree that was in the easement behind their house, and then made another report to assess that tree. But given that it's on private property, it's not something that they're going to address. So I did clarify that.
That's Duke's not addressing.
That's Duke. So
But
we kind of heard that there was a letter sent.
we still have in our ordinance a nuisance tree citation or a violent code that we can cite that owner for.
So the avenue that we discussed now is I'm getting a proposal to kind of do a hazardous tree sweep of the city, to be fair, and assess all the trees and see where we end up.
Well, God, thank you for bypassing us on that storm a week ago, but that storm would have came up here, that tree would have been in somebody's house.
Any other comments from the council? No? Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, I did see we have someone from the sheriff's department. Are you prepared to address the council on a report?
My sergeant's actually coming right in.
He's coming in, okay. All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry, we don't address, the citizens do not address the guest speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Al, I'm assuming you received these reports. You're the first one who gets this report.
Yes.
In the event that the sergeant wasn't here, would you be able to address the council on this report?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to get started, and then we'll pass the torch?
So this is the report that covers the month of August for law enforcement contract. Just going to summarize what we have reported here. As you can see, in the month of August, we had one more vehicle theft. I don't have any background info.
Sergeant, would you like to come up and address the council? We'd like to hear your report.
You need a copy of it? What we're looking at? You want my copy? Got it.
So, sorry for being late. Usually this meeting's on the first Monday of the month. We also have an assignment with Bel Air Clubs in their city, where I'm supposed to be there at 6 o'clock for a city playing game. So, a little confusion.
We'll give you a pass this time.
Thank you very much, sir. For the August report for Bel Air Beach, there was one motor vehicle theft on the first page. There's no other UCR crime stats for that page. The second page, there's 9 arrests for a total of 12 charges on individuals in Bel Air Beach during the month of August. On the third page, there's 940 events requiring 1,070 deputy units responding to those events. The final page, there is one crash during the month of August in your city, and a combination of 214 citations and warnings issued.
Thank you. I'm curious about the auto theft. Did this person leave their keys in their car?
I'm going to have to look that up and get back to you. I do not know about this meeting until just shortly.
Okay. Council, questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Next, we have a presentation from the Florida League of Cities. Council members Jody Shirley and Mike Zabel, please join me on the floor. of the Florida League of Cities, I am pleased to award to you this certificate for completion of the Institute of Elected Municipal Officials 2, and that happened in Fort Myers on September the 16th and 17th, 2022. Up first, Councilmember Jody Shirley. Up next, Councilmember Mike Seawall. I will add that that is a second class out of 4 available, and very proud of both of you for a job well done. All right, we are on to item number 5. That is the quarterly board reports. We have a report from the Board of Adjustments. Please come up, state your name, and let's hear it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Mike Kelly. I'm the chairman of the Board of Adjustment, and I got 3 quick things to talk about this past quarter. We had a resignation from the board in May, end of May, and you folks replaced that person, so we are now a full board of 7. You replaced them with David Gardella in the month of July. In the month of August, we had a hearing. A member of the board who recused himself, that was the applicant on Donato Drive, had to come before us for a variance regarding what we all consider a bad ordinance, a bad code. The actual issue regarding the height of a swimming pool above the crown of the road. Jody, you and I and several other people talked about this not long enough when we did code revision a couple of years ago, and we want to bring it back to council. But it goes work session first. It's an issue that could bring other people into requirement for the variance on forthcoming pools. Third issue, it's coming up Thursday. We have a hearing. We're going to be helping out the interim city manager with an issue where a person has appealed one of his decisions. So we have an administrative hearing coming up, not for a variance, literally for an appeal. So that's it for Board of Adjustment this quarter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Council, any questions? Comments? No? Vice Mayor.
Just for the audience, could you just quickly review what that appeal was for?
Yeah, the person wants to tear down an existing home on 22nd Street and put up a 3-story home, which is not permitted in our city. It's even written in the actual ordinance that you can't even ask for a variance for that. And the interim city manager has made a decision, and presumably, Kyle, the man has asked, where do I go from here? And we are going to hear his case on Thursday night.
The issue is that the structure is proposing 3 habitable floors.
Where we're allowed 2 above garage or adjacent to a garage, but not 3. He wants 55-foot tall home that's 3 stories, habitable floors.
I'm curious, new homes, okay, 2-story is the limit. New homes, you build a garage, you're allowed to build habitable, a story on the ground. You're still allowed to do that.
It's written above the garage.
Yeah, you have to be above the BFE, or so you can have a garage, you can have 2 habitable floors above it. You can also have 2 habitable floors adjacent if you're above the BFE.
Mayor, as this board member is going to be at the hearing on Thursday, and to preserve the integrity of that process, I request that we not get into any more depth discussing the particulars of the code.
Thank you very much.
May I ask just one question? On the pool hearing, what was the outcome of that?
The variance was granted. This particular code was written and revised in 2014. At the time of that revision, there was a lot of controversy about it. I remember physically being here with our city engineer and with the mayor at that time, who stipulated that he only wanted it 18 inches above the crown of the road, which we all thought was wrong, should have been higher. And the way it's written, any new pool, especially in these new homes that are being built, these pools are going to be built way higher than 18 inches above the crown of the road. And every single case will have to be reviewed at the city level by the city manager. And we think that council should look at it. We should all discuss it again, because when you and I were on that code board, we skipped over it. We talked about it, but we didn't have enough discussion at that time.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Mr.
Sir.
Taylor. All right, next up is the Citizen Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Mayor Ron Seganic. We only met once this month. We met on September 21st to discuss potential need for a line of credit for emergency management purposes. The committee agreed to follow up and do some homework regarding that. So City Manager Reefler and I have been talking with the last banks that we did some bond issues with, as well as the last bond council, so gathering costs, fees, and options. So that's where we are, and we'll reconvene the committee for further discussion.
Great. Council? Thank you very much, Mr. Seganic. All right, do we have a report from the Parks and Rec Board?
One second, please. We're getting texts and emails that the Zoom isn't working for people who are watching it, like the mics aren't working on Zoom. So like if people are watching this on Zoom, they can't hear anything, so.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so this is our quick recap from July, August, and September.
Can I get you to pause and
Sure.
give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Tammy Lavenda, Park and Rec Board Chair.
All right,
The Zoom
Pam,
thing threw me off.
one more second.
Sure.
Kyle, do we need to take a break?
Yeah, for me to get it working, it'd be best if we took a break.
So, Ms. Levin, I'm going to get you to hold on. Let's take 5 minutes, all right? All right, we're back. Patty, please make a note that we returned at 6:33 p.m. And now we are back online, and let's call Parks and Recreation for that.
Tammy Lavenda, Park and Rec Board Chair. Hi, everyone. So here's the Park and Rec Board's quarterly board report, the recap from July, August, and September. We had 3 successful and well-attended beach cleanups. Thank you to everybody that helped out. During this last quarter, we had lots of prep work for the 4 upcoming events, and I'm just going to recap those, and if you need more information, you can look at the city website. But the Halloween costume contest is Sunday, October 30th from 4 to 6 p.m. Please join us, kids, grandkids, and your furry family members. $100 Amazon first prize, $75 for second prize, and $50 for third prize in both the kids and the pets respectively. We have several residents, most that are in this room right now, that would like to do a trunk or treat rather than donate candy. So please let me know if you're interested. The kids will love it. And this is our only event that's weather permitting. So if it's raining, thunder, lightning, unfortunately we have to cancel this event because we cannot bring this one inside. November 19th is our chili cook-off. We are currently selling tickets and taking entry forms. There are entry forms on the table where you picked up the meeting agenda. The tickets are $10 in advance and $12 at the door. A ticket includes 2 adult beverages, the chili samples, and dessert. The Bel-Air Beach Community Foundation is doing a holiday food drive the entire month of November. Non-perishable food items can be dropped in the box in the lobby at City Hall. The holiday social and Christmas tree lighting is on December 5th from 5 to 6 p.m. We will be doing a charity toy drive at the event this year. If you cannot attend, there will be a box in the lobby where you can drop your unwrapped toy donation. There will also be new Bel Air Beach logoed items for sale at this event in time for Christmas. And then last but not least, the Health and Wellness Fair is January 14th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The third thing that we worked on this last quarter, I kind of call it our areas of need. Checklist was put together by our board members, surveys of our parks and beach accesses. And this continues to be reviewed and updated, and thank you to the city staff for all their help in getting this done. The fourth item that we will review is the easement survey questions, procedure, and example. You guys all have rough draft number 1 in front of you in your packet. So I know you tasked the Park and Rec Board at a work session to try to get feelers out in the city, and Kyle and I met on this, and we were thinking the best way to do it, to get a well-rounded survey, is to hang door surveys at everyone's house. That way we're not interrupting them, we're not knocking on doors, we're not mailing something, and then if they truly want their opinion to be known, they will definitely answer the survey. So they can drop it off at City Hall during business hours, or they can drop it in the mail slot in the back black box by the entryway near the parking lot. So what I would like to do is just briefly, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read this yet, but I want to make sure that all of the council agrees that these questions are clear and succinct, and that you think we're going to get a well-rounded survey. Because we don't want to pass out the survey and then have it, you know, these weren't good questions, or I'd rather have your stamp of approval before we do it, and then you guys are all happy, and it's just, the results are what they are. So, it's just 4 questions. Number 1, are you aware of the 10-foot grass easement that runs from 2nd Street to 18th Street in Bel Air Beach? You will be shocked at how many people do not know that it exists. Would you be interested in the city paving the easement at a cost of $200,000 to $250,000? Oh, these are all yes, no. Number 3, if no, would you like to see the easement improved by some other means? For example, shell, geocell, ground grids, etc. Yes or no? Number 4, would you like to see the easement left as is? Yes or no? And then there's a comment section. And like, just if you're talking to people about this in general, people bring up things all the time that like I never thought of, so I thought it would be a good idea if they could just put a 1 or 2 liner, especially if they feel very strongly about it. They don't particularly want to come to a council meeting. It's a way for them to do something other than yes, no. And then just their address. So, you know, and then if we wanted to get an address, not so much a name, but an address so we make sure that we don't have duplicates. So they just have to put 97 Harbor Drive. And then at the, and then it has instructions at the bottom. Please submit your survey by December 31st at the Bel Air Beach Community Center. After hours, submit through the marked outgoing mail slot on the back pedestal mailbox at the back entrance of the building. Thank you, Bel Air Beach Park and Rec Board in the city of Bel Air Beach. And then at the bottom of that, I did a little perforated line, because of course we've got to get our info in, which is some save the dates that they can cut off the bottom. I figure if we're walking door to door for every single residence, I would like to get a little info about our events. So anyway, I would love your input, and if you don't want to do it right now, maybe you can email Kyle or text me or email me. But what do you guys think so far?
Councilman Frank Baker.
Is there any way we can do electronic ballot through our website?
We only hit about 300 people, so we can. But we talked about that. We don't hit nearly enough people.
Well, we have that sign now. We can put it on the sign, you know, about the easements, because I agree with you. A lot of people don't even know the easements exist.
Right. We talked about putting it on the sign. We talked about putting it on the city website, we just don't hit enough people. I mean, we could do it at the beach cleanup, we could assign, randomly, we could stand out on the bridge, but then there's no way to ensure that we don't have duplicates. There's no way to ensure that we get a good, if you go in specific sections of the city, you can get all yeses or all nos, and that's what I wanted to avoid. I wanted it to be like a good representation of the entire city if we could get it. Believe me, I would love to do this electronically. We don't particularly want to go door to door and hang these. I mean, it's not something that we typically do, but you guys task us with this and we want to do a good job and we want to get all the information that we can.
Councilmember Zabel.
Yeah, I really like what you've done here, and tell you what, behind this, I got a list of, I send out emails to over 611 people about every 2 weeks, through the hurricane, et cetera, but I'll send out your surveys through that.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Have you considered possibly taking a survey or polling at your events?
We can, but typically we have 20 people. If we have like 50 to 100, the kids, it'll just be the parents at the Halloween event. We're not sure of the numbers of the chili cook-off. We're hoping it's very well attended, but we just don't know. We can, but then we have to make sure that we don't do duplicates if we do the hangers on the door. So if you guys don't like the hangers on the door, if Mike Zabel's email list can hit 611 residents, it's a bigger number than I've heard in the past with the constant contact, like the 3, whatever it was the last update I had. But that's about what, is that half the residents or?
300 some? No, mine's at least,
At least half, yours, not.
Yeah, no, I counted mine today, 611.
And there are no duplicates, like the husband and the wife on separate emails or anything like that?
That's something you really can't tell because of everybody's behind at hotmail.com, good luck. But I would say the majority of those are, not attached in any way.
Not dupes.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys. I mean, door to door, we're going to have to enlist as many volunteers as we can because the Park and Rec Board, it will take a month for us to hit every single house walking up and down. We're going to kind of do it like the Swokes do with the flags and try to get that many and sign everybody 2 or 3 streets, and then it'll go in like 20 minutes.
Ms. Levin, I don't think that there's a single council member here who hasn't hung something on the door. So you'll find plenty of volunteers in this group.
Okay. Are you guys good with the questions? Do you think it's a fair and, where we'll get I didn't want leading questions.
No, it's a very good respect, and you got the notes section, and you got the address to eliminate the dupes. I like it.
Lloyd Roberts.
The only thing I was thinking about, as one of those people that really didn't know there was an easement there, would there be any value, you think, in letting the people know on the door hanger as to what some of our citizens use that easement for? It may help them to think, well, why would we want to pay $200,000 to improve it? Not that I would be in favor of that, but just something that you guys are probably way more aware of. I'm sure it's used for jogging, bicycling, football games, whatever people are using that easement for. If we could maybe list that and say, well, here's some of the things the easement is currently being used for by our citizens, if anything.
Well, this is just my opinion, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think that's kind of leading, because on the flip side of it, I could also list, well, leaving it as it is now, it's the only place where I can walk my dog, where they won't bring their paws when it's 110 degrees out, and it's on the concrete, or, well, we don't have sidewalks, but you're not walking them on the street. So if I listed all the good things for having it, I would have to list all the good things for not having it. Does that make sense?
It does.
At least in my head,
Yeah.
So I felt like if the first list of questions that I wrote, some of them I felt were kind of leading.
Okay.
So whoever's writing the survey, their opinion should not be known in the survey. And I feel like if we put all of the things that it would be good for, then we're being leading. Just my opinion.
May I just add to that, though, just to your point, nowhere on here does it say it's a walking easement, and clearly it's a walking easement. And it's been called that for the city for per year.
Oh, I can add that.
Yeah,
That's fine.
so back to your point, because it just sounds like we just have an easement of some sort that randomly runs through the city.
Right.
Yeah, I'll put that in the title, like walking easement survey.
Yeah, another suggestion might be, obviously there's blank space on the back, might be a map of where it's at. Certainly, I think the most vocal people are going to be the people that are most impacted, but everyone needs to be aware, if they're not aware of the easement, where's it at?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We can do that.
Show the entire thing, citywide. You can focus on the easement portion that you're considering, but I'd show the entire easement, because people are oblivious.
A lot of people don't know it's there. If they don't live near it, or even, I know people that live on, like, the streets where they have it, it just didn't.
Yeah, if you're updated, you have my email and phone number, just call me, shoot it over, and then I can send it when you're ready.
Well, do you think that we should do both, so people have the option to either email it back in through you or drop it off at the city? Because then they will definitely, the people that you have 600 will get it twice, because we don't know, like, a direct, physical.
No, absolutely, I could let them know too, maybe on your door, et cetera, but please, vote regardless. And then to vote, you can drop it by.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because if they work during the day, they can drop it off in the mail slot, but honestly, I had no clue where that mailbox was, and I've been here.
Yeah, I worked for the hurricane prep when I sent out those emails, so it should work very well for this purpose.
Is
Any
there
other comments from the council?
That number, 250,000, is that a pretty conservative number? Because that's like $12,000 a block.
That's just the last number I heard, and I could put more, I could put a bigger number, I just put, I could put whatever number you guys want me to put in there.
It's more on the conservative side. It's more on the conservative side. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing an accurate number to cover the cost.
Yeah, I'm just saying, oil's up another $10 a barrel in a week, blacktop is oil.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Oh, thank you very much.
So we're good to proceed with this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, I just have two more things. Okay, number 5. As the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation Board has been working on the nonprofit launch, we have been discussing and giving our input to the interim city manager, Kyle Riefler, on the BRIC program discussed later in the agenda. We spent quite a bit of time on that the last 2 months of meetings. And I would just like to say a quick thank you to Kyle Riefler from both the Park and Rec Board and the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation for his time and attention with everything we were trying to accomplish. He could have very understandably told us that he didn't have time as he is doing 2 jobs and managing so many matters that are higher on the priority list. He is doing an outstanding job, and we greatly appreciate everything he is doing for our city. Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for me?
I have a question.
Do they surely?
We had a citizen talking about benches needed at one of the beach accesses. I'm not sure if we're able to place benches, but would that be something maybe the foundation could look into, selling benches and having them placed where needed throughout the city, and see if we can place them on the beach accesses?
Yes, all of that is on there. So there'll be benches, bike racks. So when he was speaking, I thought, the official launch of the foundation will be at the November City Council meeting. So we'll have a table at the Halloween event. We're going to have a table at, and we're going to be participating in the chili cook-off. We'll be sponsoring the dessert table, and we're going to be doing a raffle. So yes, absolutely. So that's the thing. We could have launched a month ago, but we've been working on the website to make sure we get as many programs like that as possible. And then that's some of the things that we've been working on with Kyle to make sure that the city is up to standards on everything that you guys have already approved. So, but for sure more information on it next. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'm good if you guys are.
Council? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and this quarter, we did not have a report from planning and zoning. All right, item 6, city attorney's report. Mr. Mora, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been quite a busy month this last month. We've worked with the interim manager on a number of matters, and many of which are on the agenda this evening. One of the things that you should expect in follow-up to our last meeting, I do have almost a complete draft of the proposed sign code. Before I circulate it to you, I want to have an opportunity to speak to the interim manager about its content format, make sure it aligns with the general aim of the community before I circulate it, and if there's any particulars that can be taken into account and resolved on the front end in terms of the realities on the ground. Otherwise, excuse me, this community did, I think, an excellent job in preparing and responding to the hurricane preparedness. I will tell you, for the benefit of the residents, that both the manager and the mayor were in contact with me immediately Monday morning following the county's declaration of an emergency on the Saturday, so that we were prepared to mobilize any necessary resolutions, resources, and otherwise. So just well done on that one. Otherwise, I have nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council? I'd say,
Yes, Mr. Mora, have you been able to take a look at that email disclaimer suggestion I brought up to you? You put it on all of our city emails?
Yes, I have. I will tell you that I'm trying to balance, as each of you are committed public servants, and I'm also mindful of a lot of the direction you gave me as I started this position on doing work for the collective as opposed to individuals. I did receive your request. I did forward draft options to interim manager Riefler. He and I, as we discussed it, he suggested, depending on the bevy of things that were being put on the agenda tonight, that maybe that would be something that would be addressed tonight, but I do have options. I am prepared to speak to that if that is the will of the body. To that same end, at the last meeting, and I would have addressed it in my report, but I want to make sure, since it has been added as an agenda item, I have had some contacts with the senior advisor program and can substantively update when we get to that agenda item that has been added.
Thank you.
other questions from the council? Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Thank you. Item 7, interim city manager's report. Mr. Riefler?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Start off, we got the 12th and 13th Street project. That was scheduled to start on September 26th. Hurricane Ian put us back a week. We actually started October 3rd. Since breaking ground and getting down to some of the actual utilities, we've discovered some utility conflicts. And so we were working around a couple laterals. We discovered a 4-inch water main. If you remember the video camera of 12th Street, there was a pipe that was going through one of the RCP. That turned out to be a water main. We initially thought it was a sewer lateral. But so there's a workaround offset line item in the contract, which we could utilize to get around that. One thing that was not in the contract is we can't work around, we can't offset the sewer line 4-inch pipe that's directly behind that. In this case, we're going to have to get, which the engineer is working on, a proposal from the contractor to have a change order for the conflict box. So I hope to have that put together this week and to address, not sure if we're scheduling our work session next Monday, but hopefully a special meeting to address that. Another thing that we ran into is we discovered on the north side of 12th Street, between the easternmost inlets, there is pipe that the surveyors didn't pick up. So we discovered about 112 feet of 15-inch RCP. When it was discovered, I got the camera crew in there to analyze the pipe because I knew if it's something we're going to add to our line item of 15-inch RCP, that we want on the condition of it. We did go in there, I have the camera footage and report, which I'll send to all you to view, but it was very much so, probably even worse than the rest of the RCP, but just so you can see with your own eyes, I did send it to the engineering firm. They recommended that it gets replaced. In that case, it's going to be a 112-foot overrun, which we do have a line item for, which is $120 per linear foot. So at that cost, we're looking at about 13,500 additional 15-inch RCP, which that will come out of our 10% built-in contingencies, which is at 65,000. So just to kind of keep in mind of what we're dealing with on that project. I will have all these numbers to present to you, obviously, when we do the change order, which should hopefully be next Monday, especially. As far as the Gulf Boulevard undergrounding project, currently utility consultants of Florida are out there doing preliminary conversations with the residents on Gulf Boulevard. For up and down Gulf Boulevard, Duke Energy is requiring easements for the transformers for the undergrounding to take place. So it's a 10 by 10 foot easement. Again, utility consultants are providing residents preliminary information. They do not have the legal contracts at this point, but we are giving them information and providing pictures to give them an idea of what they're expecting to come. The 7th Street and 16th Street Seawall and 7th Street boat ramp renovation project. That's moving along nicely now that we got started, and we received that permit from the county we're waiting on. So they are driving vinyl sheet piling in and setting the anchors at both sites, and having a meeting with the contractor and the engineer assigned. They are actually going to work with us and pull out the check valve that we recently replaced at 7th Street. When they extend that pipe out, they're going to fit it in and actually build that extension over that valve itself, so it'll be a nice tight fit. They're going to do the same at the 16th Street Seawall, which we did not have a valve into that place. So after this project, we'll have a valve in place and they'll be doing it for us. So that worked out nicely. As far as the 17th and 18th Street stormwater project, still in the design phase. I did receive a proposal from Dual Associates. Recently, we've had resident inquiry into the stormwater timeline. It inspired me to kind of update it and show everybody where we're at. That's why I sent that out to you, just to give you an idea of a little bit of history of the projects that have taken place and where the budgets were adjusted and where we're at now. I've contacted Ron Siganic with the Citizens Advisory Committee about that timeline and wants to discuss further, because as part of what they were charged with is looking into options into funding projects, possibly lines of credit, moving things along for the city. Wanted to kind of get his opinion of possible options for moving along in our capital projects and stormwater projects. We plan on meeting this week. And just as a start, if you look at that timeline, we're funded not only for 17th and 18th Street, but also for the next project, which is going to be 19th, 20th, and 9th Street. So the funding is actually in there in the budget, and I'm feeling, and I already started talking to Dual Associates and some of the other engineering firms, because I'd like to get some competitive pricing. Already talking about giving us a proposal for the first project and a proposal for 2 projects, just to see where we're at with that. Our code enforcement analysis project, we met on September 6th. It went very well. I think we were in there for probably about 3.5 hours, if I remember correctly. And we got a lot of insight from Steve's code enforcement, Steve Klepka's Sergeant Stickard. It was the first time I met him, but he was actually gave us a lot of insight. He's got a lot of background in community policing, and he was very helpful to have at the meeting. So from that meeting, we talked a lot about the ins and outs of code enforcement, a lot of challenges that are faced in different communities, and we thought our next step was going to be to feel out our residents. And since then, I put together a survey that we're planning on sending out this week via the Constant Contact. Got a couple more tweaks I'd like to make to it for functionality, but send that out with a deadline for the end of the month to get some solid feedback on what's important to the residents, and hopefully maybe identify the different geographical areas of the city and see where maybe what's important in one area differs from another. And then from there, we're going to reconvene and talk strategy and how we're going to reach what meeting the goals of, or meeting the expectations of the residents, I should say. The City Hall Seawall project, now that we have the funding in the budget, I said we had the $30,000 that's in the capital projects fund. I want to go back out and get a preliminary estimate from, I think I'm going to try Enterprise Marine, who did the seawall there on Belle Isle, to just kind of feel around if we're in the correct ballpark before going out to bid. Just to make sure, you know, if it's going to come back higher, kind of reassessing where we're going to be if we go out to bid, what the numbers are going to be. Children's playground, still in back order. Some other projects that we have coming up, in this new budget year, we have the new admin assistant. I am in the process of taking old admin assistant job descriptions and coming up with our current description of what we're going to need and advertise. Another project that is fully funded as of October 1 is the community center generator. I'm going to check back with that contractor and make sure the numbers are still in line, but I'd also like to bring this as an overall emergency management item at a work session to consider some of the needs we have as a city for emergency management and see if it's money best spent on this backup generator or if there's something that's more beneficial to our residents and our needs for an emergency, and we could possibly use that money for it. And I believe that covers everything.
Councilman.
Frank Banker. First of all, Kyle, commend you on the excellent job you did preparing the city for the storm. People saying you're doing 2 jobs. This man actually was doing 3 jobs the last 2 days. He was physically filling sandbags, loading them in people's cars. We are so blessed with the staff that we have, including this woman right there and the women that work in that office. I really believe all you deserve a bonus for giving up your Sundays. Last year you gave up the July 4th weekend. Our field staff doesn't live here. So a lot of them could have called in sick and said, you know, I got my own house to prepare, but they didn't. They came here and they did an excellent job. I was here, I guess, till 6:30 Monday night. Didn't look good, and everybody got sandbags. We had plenty of sand left. I think when we left, I think we still had like 15 bags still ready to go. But did I hear you correctly that there was 112 feet of reinforced concrete pipe on that project over there that didn't come up on the original survey? Correct. And that job just got, I think we voted 4-3 to pass that. And I commend you, Mr. Mayor, because you pushed it ahead. I'm never into patching construction sites. 80-year-old pipes need to be replaced. Is there any chance on that 7th Street valve when you go in there, can you raise that about 6 inches to a foot? Or would that just throw off the whole flow, you know, the criteria of flow on that? Because that valve is too low right now, and there's still water comes into the street. It does close, but
I understand that. I believe that would be a completely, at this point, change the scope of the project. I can ask an engineer opinion on that.
yeah, I don't know about the integrity of the other pipe, if that would be, you know, compromised or not, but it would be beneficial if you could raise it. And there was an email sent out on October 4th by a resident about a sign on the beach, the Tortugas Lamar properties. I don't know if you got it.
Yes, I've seen that.
They said it was on the public beach portion, and no trespassing sign. I'm a little bit leery with any signs on beaches. There's 2 down at 28th or 1st Street and Bel Air Shores. Get a good windstorm, who knows where they're going. Do they have to be permitted by the county?
That is the state's territory.
State's territory? Okay.
So when I first was aware of that sign. I contacted the FDEP, and they told me it was allowed per their standards.
It was allowed?
It was a single pole sign.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Mayor Bennett.
Two things. The first one is, you talked about the emergency generator. So take 30 seconds here and set the stage for what the alternatives are for spending.
Some of the things I've been looking at is our sandbagging procedures. This last storm really tested us. We had to put out more sandbags in a shorter amount of time than we ever had since I've been here or ever heard of in the history of our sandbag station. We went through about 5,000 bags in a matter of 2 days, and it seemed like we were backed up. We tried to regulate the traffic. It would definitely be something to improve on, finding better means, and I did some research. They do make sandbag manufacturing tools, and they also make attachments that would fit on our tractor to make 20 sandbags at a time. I think this is something that we should look into. The prices on them are anywhere, the attachment being about $10,000, and then some really nice sandbagging tools, processing where you scoop a bucket and put the sand in the top, and it pretty much produces sandbags. That runs a little bit higher, about 20, 25,000. But just options to consider, what works best for us. Another idea would just be if we get a way to more easily make sandbags, to build some kind of shed storage facility somewhere on property where we can palletize sandbags and have them available for residents when in need. And I think if our production levels and our ability to hand out or access to hand out sandbags when the demand is high, we might solve a lot of the problems that we were facing just at this last event.
Good thoughts. My second thing is, you've got some big projects in play here, and you're doing a great job. You're running at 120% on a lot of these things. So my question is, you're wearing two hats right now, so, my observation is anything you touch, you do it at 120%. You don't back off on anything. You give everything your maximum focus. My concern is you're trying to cover two jobs right now. Your plate is running over. Give me some idea of what your concerns are that you're not capable of giving to your full attention. What are those things that could fall off the plate or that you're concerned about?
Thank you for asking. My primary concern would be my attention and supervision that I can give to the public works staff that's recently taking on the additional responsibilities. I feel like they could use a little more of my time. I do try to communicate with them as much as I possibly can, but I would like to be more involved in some of the things that they're doing, and also the training. I feel like I could be doing more training with them, just haven't had the time to be doing it with them. It's just concerned that it's not sustainable over a long period of time. I mean, we're getting by, and they're doing a great job, really picking up the slack in every way possible, and I commend them for that. They typically don't go out of their way to ask something unless they have something important that they need to know. Another concern of mine is just the overall project management. We're trying to move things along, we're trying to keep projects going, but finding time to get out in the field and just monitor what's going on with the projects is a concern of mine. I hope that it's been apparent to the council that what I've been trying to do is not just keep the city afloat and hold on. I'm trying to keep us moving forward with what we're trying to accomplish.
Thanks.
Mike Zabel.
Before I go any further, I want to thank you for everything you've done, but I want to point out Councilman Bankert, I want to thank you. I mean, we were both out there multiple days shoveling a whole heck of a lot of sand. But that brings up something, I guess I showed you the list of these things, is what I'm going to be recommending here in the short-term future is taking that sandbags filling station out of that area, because it was just a one-way street pilot, and that's not fair to the citizens. We have a perfectly good marina that we could use, increase to maybe 3 stations. You could snake the traffic in there, and it doesn't hurt the citizens. And more importantly, if you haven't looked around lately, we're not a really young community. We don't have a bunch of weightlifters out there. I know both Councilman Banker and myself, we were delivering to other people, but we don't have a list of senior citizens, and they need to turn confirmed, that can't do their own sandbags. And what I'd like to do is, I'll propose later, is we get together kind of a core of some citizens that can actually get a list of the people that need the sandbag services. We come out first time, get them, take them, deliver them, and then install them for the people. But I'll give you the full plans on later. Like I said, you've already seen some of the basis of it, so some thoughts with the sandbag situation going forward.
Yes.
Kyle, so you mentioned the 15-inch, I guess it was elliptical concrete pipe
Yes.
that they came across. Where approximately was that located?
Okay, so the, right at the corner of 12th and Bay, you have, so you have this CDS unit on the south corner. And then if you go to the west, you have an inlet. And that's where all the pipe was on the plan. But if you take that inlet and you go across the street to the north side, there's the matching inlet with the cross pipe underneath. From that inlet to the west, on the north side of 12th Street, for the first 2 inlets there's 112 feet of connecting 15-inch RCP.
Okay.
It kind of completes a big circle.
Right.
They did not know that was there.
Yeah, actually, I think I did have a conversation with the engineer on that particular drawing, and I pointed out that it did not make logical sense with respect to the pipes, and it didn't show a pipe. And he finally agreed, yes, there should have been something shown there, but more importantly, so you said that you felt like when they videoed that pipe, it was not in good condition. Was it the pipe itself, or was it more of the joints again?
It was the pipe itself this time. There was a lot of cracking and leaking, vertical cracking.
Okay.
But I will provide that to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
But I took a look at it, and I'm not an engineer, but I thought it looked worse than the other.
Got it. Got it. I did actually stop there on, I think, Sunday evening, and I saw some of the pipe they had in fact removed.
Taking pictures.
And it was late in the afternoon. I'd watched a few football games, had some beverages, but it looked pretty good. Like it's in pretty good shape, that particular stuff that was piled there. But probably most importantly, typically an engineering firm will have errors and omissions insurance. So we need to definitely look into that, because it should have been their responsibility to identify that and have that in the plans. And that's what that insurance is for. So the contractor is going to come back now and say, change order, City of Bel Air Beach, you owe us money, which we're going to have to come up with. But if it falls underneath the category of errors and omissions from the design engineering firm, that's what they have that insurance for. So we need to make sure we ask them about that, and their insurance could cover our additional costs to where we don't have to pay that. That could be worthwhile.
That's a good point. Really, I'm surprised that we don't have accurate maps of our infrastructure. It's a little shocking to me, actually, because we're old, but we're not that old. So I guess as we move forward, maybe we should have those drawings updated and have more engineering, at least something to reference. Because it sounds to me like we completely dropped the ball somewhere in our history on that one particular pipe. The next thing, I would like to commend everyone who participated in bagging the sand. However, I will say that this is 2022, and there are alternatives to regular old sandbags. I don't know the cost yet, but I want to share a product with you that that I came across, and those were my sandbags, where you just take this flat bag out of a box this tall, soak it in water, and it becomes a water barrier for the water. And you can store literally thousands of them in a very small place. Again, I don't know what the cost is, but whenever you look at the amount of labor and the critical nature, and also the fact that, as Mr. Banker described, there are people out there that are unable to help themselves. So this would be a faster way to get those sandbags out without having to actually go out and dig sand. So I'll share that with you, and we'll see if it's something that it may be a solution for Bel Air Beach going forward in the future. Great job, great report.
Mr. Mayor,
Any other comments? Yes.
well, I've been here 8 years. I'm not sure how long you've been here, but 8 years ago, we used to have no lock on the sand pit over there. That's what I call it. And then our former city manager said there was, I guess, landscape contractors coming and stealing some of the sand, so that's why he locked it up. But maybe from like May 15th to October 15th, we could have 1 day a week. Now, I'm sure no one will probably use it, because everyone rushes until, waits until the hurricane comes before they fill up sand. Maybe 1 day a week they could come over and just fill up the sand if they wanted. Because I was over there one night, the sheriff came up and says, you know something that we don't know? And he said, I'm just getting prepared, But the other thing, this really works. Use DAB, and Mike, you probably know it, the quick stuff. We put the foam barrier around it. When Hurricane Sandy came up, they ran out of sandbags in New Jersey, the ones that had DAB. And the DAB comes off easy, the quick stuff never does, but it completely sealed stuff on boardwalks up there. They had no rain damage.
Yeah, I agree. That quick stuff I'm still scraping off. I can't get rid of it. Any other questions or comments for the interim city manager? Oh, all right. Let's move on to number 8. This is the city clerk's report. Ms. Gentry, you have the floor.
Mine was just the hurricane. We were surprised at how much we had to pack and move and get up high and then cover for anything that came in from up top. And then we were here the very next day and unpacking and putting everything back in place. Everything had to be moved. So that was good. And then the next thing is the Board of Adjustment hearing that Chairman Kelly talked about. So we'll be having that. And then last time we talked about the liens that have been filed. And so those 3 that are listed have been paid. And the only one that we haven't heard back on yet is the 16th Street one. So we should get that back any day now.
Great. Council? Any questions for Patty?
Just thank you, Patty, for staying late those nights, getting the citizens there. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And I'd like to thank you for getting these minutes updated.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work. Anyone else? No? Thank you very much. All right, we are up to the consent agenda. This is covering items 9 through 14. This is for approval of the July 19th, 2022 Special City Council City Manager Search Meeting Minutes, approval of July 28th, 2022 Special City Council City Manager Search Meeting Minutes, approval of August 1st, 2022 Special City Council Manager Search Meeting Minutes, approval of September 7th, 2022 City Council Meeting Minutes, approval of September 19th, 2022 City Council Work Session Minutes, and for authorization to execute the interlocal agreement between Pinellas County and the City of Bel Air Beach, providing for joint control of pollutants within Pinellas County. That being said, do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Jody.
Jody Shirley. And the second was? Frank Bankert. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda passes. Now we are on to the regular agenda. This is item 15, consideration of ordinance 22-04, first reading. Mr. Mora, would you please read the summary?
Happily, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 22-04, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, amending the city's code of ordinances to repeal provisions establishing a Gulf of Mexico safety zone in order to conform to applicable state laws and regulations, establishing a vessel exclusion zone designated as a public bathing beach restricted to manually propelled vessels only, providing for the installation of regulatory markers, establishing violations relating to the public bathing beach, establishing the means of enforcement, providing for the incorporation of recitals, providing administrative direction to implement this ordinance, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This has been a first reading ordinance number 22-04 by title only. I spoke with Manager Riefler. I would take lead on just presenting the staffing on this. Hopefully this ordinance should not come as a surprise to any of you. This is the product of a series of attempts at other drafts that did not best serve this community's needs and desires. That is the legislative process and totally fine. We also had a workshop on this issue and specifically with this draft in mind to discuss it where this body considered alternative options. What this does is it conforms the city's code to the modern state of the law on vessel exclusion zones. And the city is given the leeway under Florida law and Florida administrative code to establish vessel exclusion zones. One of the categories that the city can establish is a public bathing beach, and we have elected to establish a public bathing beach as a community. The term public bathing beach is not specifically defined in Florida statute or the Florida administrative code, though many other forms of vessel exclusion zones are. That leaves that matter in our home rule powers to define as appropriate and in conformity with the other administrative code provisions, and that's what we've done here. So the Gulf of Mexico safety zone, as you know it, or to some, the existing area within the buoys, as we've known those buoys in this community, would now be a public bathing beach where you are allowed to operate manually powered vessels. So if you have a sail, if the sail is down and hopefully if possible the rudder is up, and you're manually operating it, you can come in. Paddle boards, kayaks, canoes, all manually powered, all permissible within this zone. This does not allow for, this does not allow for combustible engines to come in, even if briefly, or under a low wake. That is not a approach that we could countenance while in keeping in harmony with the existing definitions in the code and statute. So this is an ordinance attempting to reconcile the equitable interests of this community, as articulated by the commission, or the council, that balancing the interests of your recreating public with your beach-going public and public bathers and children and all the things that have been raised in the various hearings. Ultimately, this is an ordinance which makes it a policy decision. All policies, many policies, are bounded by some legal requirements, but ultimately this is your decision to make as the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Before we have discussions on this, I'm going to need a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mike Sable and Frank Baker. Mike Sable, you have the floor.
We've obviously discussed it thoroughly, and that also you're not allowed to use a sailboard, a kite sail, and all those high-speed applications. It comes down to really one thing. Look, not everyone's going to be very happy about it, but this protects everyone.
Thank you. Other comments? Frank Baker.
I believe this ordinance actually complies with section 30-144, section 3, motorized watercrafts not allowed to be in the beach areas of the Bel Air Beach, and that's been on the books for 20-some years. And I've always held this one back because anyone knows me, I've been fighting about buoys from Bel Air shores up, not Bel Air Beach, but it's been comical at sometimes to find out that, people wanted to anchor their boats and have been anchoring their boats, but it was completely prohibited for 20 years. So, hey, I'm glad to see the buoys are staying.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Anyone else? Lloyd Roberts.
I did have one question.
Mr. Moore, under definitions. So number 3, I just want to get a visual in my own mind, where it talks about vessels equipped with sails or mechanical means of propulsion may enter the marked area only if the sails or mechanical means of propulsion is not in use. Mechanical means, what are we trying to convey here? I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Mechanical is meaning what? Because later on it talks about there, it says, and if possible to do so, the mechanical means of propulsion is tilted or raised out of the water.
So we would be giving those their ordinary meaning. Their ordinary meaning, mechanical typically implies an artificial mechanism powering it, not simply a pedal connected to a spoke. That's not mechanical means as this is constructed in context.
Okay.
What you'd be talking about is the engine or the sail down, the engine up. You know, in some, especially in little skiffs and things, as you get into shallower water, you can tilt that up so it doesn't scrape the bottom and things of the like. And so that's what it is referring to. The mechanical means would be the combustible engine, that sort of construct.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, that's what I thought. So if somebody did have a combustible engine, but they were outside our buoys, and they said, okay, I'm going to shut it off, I'm going to paddle into shore.
That's permissible under this, because the mechanical means are no longer engaged or in use, and they are functionally, from a velocity standpoint, which is one of the concerns that we were trying to harmonize. From a velocity standpoint, at that point though they are maybe larger in mass, you can't paddle a 28-foot yacht, nor can you get to shore at that depth, but your velocity is indistinguishable from a paddleboard.
Okay, just want to make sure. Got it, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Moore, I'd like to thank you first off for taking the time to tolerate us throughout this painful topic. You definitely have more patience than most of us.
Well, I want to take the time to commend this body. I think it's important to recognize that, frustrating though it may have been, this is how the legislative process is supposed to work. And I think ultimately, over the course of our 3 and 4 drafts, we got to a better work product. And that's the goal. The goal is ultimately to balance the interests and get a better work product. So often, and forgive me, but I'm going to take the opportunity to use the soapbox. So often that division that we're seeing, that we saw in this process, is characterized as stalemate, and this person's intransigent, we can't get anywhere, nobody's getting anything done. This is the process. It's very frustrating inherently. Our democratic process is frustrating, and it is slow, and it is inefficient, perhaps slower than the votes that will be allowed in. But it is the process. It's designed with that in mind, and I want to thank you for your patience with me as we worked to that product, as I got to that understanding. I do note, as between the workshop and now and on this first draft, there may be one slight difference in the second reading, harmonizing some of the elements that Member Natero raised before on the prohibited activities, being specifically called out and ensured that those are harmonized with this draft, and we don't leave anything lingering, or at least stating anything that is in conflict is superseded. I meant to address that between publication to you, and I did not. That will be addressed, and as noticed to the public, that will be addressed most likely in your second draft, unless we decide that we just want to do that by separate.
Thank you. And I'd also like to commend Councilmember Natero for calling it to your attention. Let's go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to make a comment on this topic? Oh, all right. Back to the council, and we will give Mike Zabel the final word.
Yeah, it's definitely agreement here. It's taken a long process, but I also want to commend Mr. Moore. It's also been a very good chance for us to work together and learn our working styles. He said, is when you first start a job, it's difficult. You don't know how people will work, how they will react, and it's really proven that this new city council really does work quite well together, including with the interim city manager and the city attorney. So, closing, I recommend vote yes, go forward with this.
Thank you very much. All right, so now we're going to take a vote. This is to approve the first reading of ordinance 2204. Ms. Gentry, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bankard.
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley.
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. So it passes unanimously, and we will do this again in a month. All right, we are on to number 16. Consideration of Resolution 2022-07. Mr. Moore, would you please read the summary?
Happily, Mr. Mayor, Resolution 2022-07, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, ratifying the state of local emergency in Bel Air Beach declared by the mayor due to Tropical Depression 9, Tropical Storm Ian, Hurricane Ian, and its potential threat of harm to the residents and property of the City of Bel Air Beach, and providing for an effective date and termination date. This has been a first reading of Resolution 2022-07, first and only reading, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-07?
So moved.
Motion made by Jody Shirley, and I believe Frank Baker had the second. All right. Ms. Shirley, you have the floor.
This is just procedural and something that needs to be done to clean up the resolution from the hurricane, and I really don't have anything more to add to that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? All right, let's go to the citizens on this. Any comments? Yes. Don Hanson.
John Hansick, 22nd Street. First off, once again, please, Mr. Mayor, will the city council members put the microphones in front of their faces when they speak? There are two of them I could hardly hear. Thank you. On the resolution, I don't believe I have heard anything from the state that Governor DeSantis has terminated the state of local emergency. So my question would be, do you as mayor have discretion to terminate it prior to his declaration, or does that work?
I would, normally we don't respond to questions, but I will on this one.
Thank you.
I would like Mr. Moore to address this question.
Yes, and the question is well placed, and I can, I first want to begin by stating this resolution in no way suggests that the events to the south of this county are somehow fake news or unreal, and nor are you suggesting that. My folks are in Cape Coral, and I'm very much aware of what that looks like. This falls within our home rule powers to recognize that it would likely be insincere to suggest we're making emergency purchases at this time because we don't have the means, time, or resources to go through the ordinary channels. And so through our home rule powers, we can recognize we don't have that need any longer, though that need may otherwise exist in the state. And so for purposes of this declaration, it's recognizing that we are returned to business as usual, and we are not going to invoke emergency powers in good faith. We are prepared to terminate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Any other questions or comments from the citizens? Nope. All right, let's bring it back to the council with Councilmember Shirley having the last word.
Nothing further.
All right, so let's take a vote. I think we can just do this on a voice vote. This is to approve Resolution 2022-07. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, could we do a roll call on this, please?
We sure can.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Ready?
In that case, please take roll.
Councilmember Bankard.
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley.
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. And surprisingly, we come up with the same answer. All right, Resolution 2022-07 passes. Thank you, Patty. All right, on to item number 17. This is for consideration of Resolution 2022-08. Mr. Mora, you're up.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Resolution 2022-08, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach delegating to the city manager the administrative authority to authorize the use of the city seal under certain conditions, making related findings, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is a first and single reading of Resolution 2022-08 by title only.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2022-08? Leslie Nataro, and anyone else for a second?
Second.
Jody Shirley. Leslie, you have the floor.
I think it's self-explanatory, it makes sense.
Other comments from the council? I just wanted to make it clear why you are wanting to have this authorization.
So I had a conversation with Attorney Moore of a situation where we would need to approve the use of the seal, obviously in a positive light for the city. And I asked him what the procedure would be to do so. And then he presented another, it was actually a county resolution as an example of how it's done. And I thought that, given the guidelines, it was something good to have in place to kind of help with the procedural things that may be in the way for the process of using the city seal.
I understand. And was there something that came up where there's an immediate need for that?
In consideration for the community foundation programs.
Okay. I just wanted everyone to hear it. So. Any other comments from the council?
Is that seal a registered trademark?
My office has done trademark and intellectual property registration of city intellectual property. Coming into this, I haven't been asked that question yet. We can certainly look into whether it is, and if we desire to do that. I will tell you that in some communities, first and foremost, putting aside federal copyright law, it is a crime of the state of Florida to use a city seal without authorization, which is the genesis of this resolution, to ensure there is no misunderstanding and to make very clear the conditions under which the manager would rescind that. The way this dialogue actually started, Interim Manager Riefler approached me with the idea of extending this to the city seal or logo, and as we had that discussion, we realized there is no logo. To the extent nothing beyond the city seal, that term is sort of used interchangeably, and we don't want to dilute its protection by characterizing it as a logo. But in communities like, and just as an example, the city of Dunedin, where they have the official seal, and then they have that sort of primary colors label Dunedin that they use as a logo, those are registered. And if we want to go to alternative designs that may have an expanded use where we say, we're good with the logo being used, but not the seal, and sort of tier or brand those uses, that is an option for us, and we can look into that. At this stage, I'm not, and it seems Manager Riefler's not aware whether this is registered, but I do think it's worthwhile to make all that known to answer that question.
I was just wondering, if it's not registered, is the resolution really valid in a federal court?
Yes, it is. It is valid. This is legally customary, and again, within our powers to do that, both based on your
Mike,
statute and the
I
code.
understand all that, but I mean, would a federal judge uphold it? And you know how to answer.
It's a license, so yeah, a federal judge, ultimately, it's our intellectual property, whether it's registered or not, it's still copyrighted. If I draw a picture here that's not Mickey Mouse, but is some random creation, it actually is entitled to copyright protections right there. It's just an unregistered copyright and may have diluted protections. This has a city seal and an official legal document. What we would be granting is a revocable license, so the legal framework for that exists.
Thank you for explaining that. Vice Mayor.
I was going to say, this whole thing resurrects some painful memories in the city of Bel Air Beach when years ago people tried to use this symbol behind us for, not for fiduciary gain or anything like that, but just to say, hey, these things are going on in the city of Bel Air Beach. So, it was debated, logo, seal, whatever. The thing that came out is that is not the symbol that appears on our city seal. When we stamp a document with the city seal, that's not the symbol that's on it, right? So I'm saying, I I guess we need to really get our arms around this thing because, you know, we just kind of reinvent this thing every 4 or 5 years, and maybe it's time to really.
According to your code of ordinances, this is in fact your official city seal, and the resolution reflects that, that citation. If it is not your city seal, that is, you know, I'm going based on the legal documents I have access to. If there's, and that may, whether or not that logo is used on what the clerk uses as a stamp, may be something else, and that can be looked into, whether those can be harmonized. But according to your code of ordinances, if that specific depiction appears and is officially designated as the city seal.
Well, that ordinance was the result of this whole painful debacle, and I'm not quite sure it was given all of the due diligence.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
it. Just basically kind of went down the road, and that's what we ended up with, to basically drive home the position of the city attorney at the time.
Understood.
I agree. Well, maybe we really need to look at that.
Mr. Gunn's actually educating me now. Would it be better to table this and get it right? Because I didn't know there was two. You just educated me.
This is a resolution and not an ordinance, so we're not changing an ordinance. We're authorizing.
You are authorizing. The authorization here is specific in its scope. You can just, I'm not suggesting to you what you should do ultimately. That's your decision as a body. You have the ability to table a resolution in the same manner you have an ordinance, because it's still a policy document of the body. If you are not comfortable with its content, you have that ability. Again, I was aware that ordinance was passed in, I believe it's 2018. And so that would comport with what you're describing, that a few years ago, this was a topic of discussion. And so if there are misgivings, misunderstandings, or we feel due diligence needs to be done, we can address that. If this specifically, as written, the resolution specifically identifies this document as the seal, or this image as the seal, and the image that a revocable license could be granted for. If that's not the image that this body recognizes as its seal, that would be information to me that would be relevant.
Vice Mayor Gunn.
Then I will put this issue to bed for one time. Let's get it done. I move the motion. I motion that we table this until we can provide any further due diligence by the city attorney.
Second.
We have a motion to table on the consideration of resolution 2022-08. Patty, I think we're going to need to do a roll call vote on the table.
Right. Councilmember Bankert,
Yes, table.
Councilmember Notero,
No.
Councilmember Roberts,
No.
Councilmember Shirley,
Yes, table it.
Councilmember Zabel,
No.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
No.
So the motion to table fails. We need to move forward on voting for this resolution. However, we have not yet taken any comments from the citizens. Would anyone like to speak on this topic? Nope. All right, back to the council, and with Leslie Nataro having the last word.
Can I say something? I would say that with this moving forward, we need to have a plan cleaning up this issue, because it has been an issue that's reared its head a few times, and it was ugly to the point that council was wanting to prosecute one of our citizens for innocently placing this on a piece of communication that they generated. So it can lead to serious ramifications if we don't get this straightened out.
And I do understand that. My reasoning for moving forward on this is because we still have the community, right? So we need to give them something to work with. And in the meantime, we should start working towards correcting this problem. So there we go. So we're back to taking a vote on this. We're going to have to take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Banker,
No.
Councilmember Notero,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Shirley,
No.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. So the resolution passes 5-2. We will revisit this in the near future. All right, we are on to item number 18. This is to nominate and elect a vice mayor following the resignation of Glenn Gunn from the vice mayor position. Before we get started, do I have a motion to nominate and elect a new vice mayor? Motion made by Vice Mayor Gunn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Jody Shirley has the second. So far, the council members who have expressed interest are Leslie Otero, Jody Shirley, and Mike Zabel. Since the motion was made by Vice Mayor Gunn, I'll give you the opportunity to make the first nomination.
This council membership is comprised of people bringing many attributes to the council. Among those things are long-term residents. They've seen the good side of Bel Air Beach, they've seen the bad side, the evolution of Bel Air Beach. There are people with tremendous business acumen. They have a lot of expertise in the codes, in contract, and they bring a lot of different aspects to the business side of running this city. People bring assertiveness to this job. They step forward, they take a leadership role in this thing and get things done. People bring a corporate history to this job. What things are we reinventing here? What have we tried before that didn't work? What have we tried before that works? And rather than waste time reinventing the wheel, let's continue to move forward on this thing. Most importantly, voting on and doing what's best for the residents in the city of Bel Air Beach. There's only one person that comes to my mind that has all of these attributes. Long-term residents, they've seen the evolution of Bel Air Beach, good and bad, tremendous business acumen in contract and codes, assertiveness, taking a leadership role, and most importantly, the corporate history. So we just talked about some of these things with use of the city logo or seal or whatever we're going to call it. But most of all, this person always votes their mind on what's best for the residents and what's best for the city of Bel Air Beach. Personal agendas aside, personal feelings aside, it's what is best for the residents and the city of Bel Air Beach. And that person is Jody Shirley, and that's the person I nominate because that person, because of all those attributes in one person, should be sitting front and center on this dais alongside the mayor in helping shape where this community goes. So my endorsement and nomination is for Jody Shirley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. I will now take other nominations. Kind of hard to follow that, huh?
I'll nominate myself.
All right, Mike Zabel. Any other nominations?
I'll nominate myself. City council for a long time resident here, involved in major projects, working with the state, county, and so on.
Thank you very much. Any other nominations? Nope. All right, I know that we just heard from Leslie, but I would like to actually hear from each candidate who'd like to speak and address the council and the citizens. Liz here now. Jody Shirley.
Well, I've been a resident of Bel Air Beach 2000. I have a lot of history here. I'm sorry. I have a lot of history here. I've seen many councils come and go. I understand why we have in place some of the things we have in place. I consistently move forward on new ideas and new projects and stay consistent with keeping our infrastructure top on the list and not getting caught in the weeds on a lot of the small items that will affect citizens, but in the end, if we don't have infrastructure and a good running management team, none of those other items matter. I would love to work out the rest of the term as the vice mayor, but whatever you all decide is best, I'm fine with and will support our team however I need to.
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Now let's go to Mike Zabel, the second nominee.
Yeah, first and foremost, I've attended every meeting here actually early and in person. I feel that's critical. You really have to be here to work. And most notably by, leading from the front within the community. I mean, you just saw the last 2 days, out there sandbagging. You saw me out there personally. But, amongst all, as I reach out to the community, like I said, I got probably twice the number of people on my email list that I reach out to regularly. And I don't think anybody on the board, actually any other council member, has reached out to that many with hurricane preps, with keeping them informed of what's going on in the city. I mean, you'll look further, there's actually 35 items I'm proposing to get done that will save the city, considerable money. And no other candidate has done that. I mean, I'll get it frankly, say, look, you're a previous council member, you're a previous mayor, you failed to do it that time. Why should we elect you this time? So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zabel. Ms. Montero.
Yes, been full-time resident here since.
Ms. Montero, can you turn your microphone on?
Okay. Been a full-time resident here since 2002. Lived on the beach, originally got involved on beach renourishment. When we first moved here, I caught a small hammerhead shark standing on my seawall, which is not a good thing. But worked with the state and with the county to get that done. Have worked with many of the people here in the town, and Beller Beach is a unique community. It's hard to describe to people that, we're residential. We don't have any bars here or anything like that. But I think it's important that we maintain that ambiance, that sense of community that we have here. And I would like to continue doing that in the position of vice mayor.
Thank you. Would any other council members like to make a comment? No? All right, let's go to the citizens. Would any of the citizens like to comment on these three candidates? Yes, sir. John Hanson.
John Hansick, 22nd Street. First off, let me say I'm not biased because we both served in the Navy. However, the fact that since Councilman Zabel has come onto this commission, this council, and even prior to the hurricane, he has led from the front. He's got some excellent ideas. I've read his emails. That's the man that should be the vice mayor. And I just have to say again, even though I did it in private, bravo Zulu, Captain. That's the man that should be vice mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments from the citizens? Yes, sir.
Hi, Kelly. I've worked with Jody and Leslie for 20 years. Each one of them have done an outstanding job. I don't doubt that Mike, you'll do a terrific job now and in the future. I think this is your decision, council. We're not voting, you are. You've got great candidates, and each one of you has to vote your heart. So whoever you think you should support, you should. I'll never forget the phone call from a stranger named Jody Shirley, who called me one day when I was mayor and said, "I don't know you, and you must be doing a hell of a job because the guy in the newspaper really hates you. If there's anything I can do, let me know." And she and her children walked the street for me at re-election time. So I endorse Jody. I love you, Leslie, but it's your vote, council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Yes, sir.
Again, my name's Randy Levitz. Longevity in office, to me, doesn't mean much. I mean, you could look at the current president who was involved in politics for 40 years and doesn't impress me, but I just want to say I keep going back to the proactiveness that Mike Zabel takes. Each and every day I see emails or notices or updates on the storm and everything else. And in the last 14 years or whatever that I've lived here, I've never got any reaction from any people that ever sat on this body like this. And this guy just, he seems energized. He seems like he wants to do so much for the community. So I would urge you to give him the nod. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. All right, so we're back to the council. I'd like to hear from each of you that would like to give a final comment. Let's start with Frank Banker.
No comment.
Ms. Natero?
Nothing else?
All right, Mr. Roberts?
I'm done.
Mike Zabel?
Nothing else.
Jody Shirley?
Nothing further from me.
Vice Mayor Gunn? All right, let's take it to a vote. You have a ballot. Each of you have a ballot already. There are two blanks. One of them is name, and the other one is signature. Please write in your choice for candidate under name, and then under signature, just sign it.
Councilmember Banker voted for Councilmember Notero. Councilmember Notero voted for Councilmember Notero. Councilmember Roberts voted for Councilmember Shirley. Councilmember Shirley voted for Councilmember Shirley. Councilmember Zabel voted for Councilmember Zabel. Vice Mayor Gunn voted for Councilmember Shirley. And Mayor Gaddis voted for Councilmember Shirley.
Thank you, Patty. So we have Jody Shirley 4, Mike Zabel 1, Leslie Natero 2. Congratulations, Jody Shirley. You are now the vice mayor. All right, now we are on to item number 19. Consideration of appointment of Park and Recreation Board alternate member to regular member. This was supposed to be Deborah DeCosimo. However, Patty informed me that Ms. DeCosimo has decided to remain as an alternate member. Therefore, I am requesting that we withhold any motions on this item. All right, now we are up to number 20. This is for consideration of an agreement between the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation and the City of Bel Air Beach for an engraved brick program. This was added to the agenda by interim City Manager Riefler. Before we begin discussion, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
That would be Leslie Matero. And do I have a second? That was Jody Shirley. All right. I'm going to give this over to Mr. Riefler and let him explain what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Mayor. So, just to start out, because this is the first agenda item with the memo, I started listing the strategic plan as we brought up in the last meeting, and I feel this one falls under the aesthetics and community as a goal of the strategic plan.
Mr. Riefler, can I get you to speak up a little bit?
Sorry, I'm getting some feedback on this. Okay, I think it's a little better. What I was trying to say is, yeah, as far as lining this item up with the strategic plan, I believe this represents goal, aesthetics, and community. What this is it's an agreement worked on by Attorney Mora for the Bel Air Community Foundation Engraved Brick Program. This agreement, some key points of it. Actually, let me just give a little history of the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation. It's a newly formed public charity, and I did include their mission. Their mission is, the BBCF's mission is to foster a healthy, beautiful, and thriving environment through good works, community improvement projects, and social gatherings to enhance the lives of the residents. Some background, we brought this up in our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They like the idea, just to kind of run it by them. We came up with 2 possible locations for this, which I'll get to later, and I included it as attachments. So the agreement itself is, it places the BBCF in charge of selling, ordering, receiving funds, approving brick tax, maintaining records of funds, and maintenance of the bricks. So the BBCF will manage every aspect of the Great Brick Program with the exception of the initial installation of the bricks. That would be the City of Bel Air Beach responsibility. One other point is that the city is agreeing to install the bricks at a minimum of 6 bricks, and the BBCF will not request the city to install the bricks more than 1 time per 6 months. I also included the BBCF Great Brick Program order form, as well as the suggested locations that the Park and Recreation Board came up with. The key element to these locations are visibility, and feeling the city-owned property was one of the most visible properties in the city.
Thank you very much. Council.
I have a question maybe for Mr. Mora. I see Tammy Lavenda is the chairman of the foundation. She's also chairman of the Parks and Rec Board. Does that cause any issues?
I think the question that you're asking is a dual office holding. I can't tell if it's dual office holding or if it's an ethics question. Inasmuch as as I understand BCF, it is an entity entirely separate and distinct from the city, so you don't have a dual office holding element because it's not a public office. Inasmuch as your question is a member of the Parks and Rec Board is a member of the foundation, this nonprofit organization. I'd have to know more about what their salary is and how that's remunerated, but as I understood, to the extent this question had been raised in the broadest terms possible, this is an independent, nonprofit entity looking to partner with the city. That Parks and Rec director doesn't have the ability to independently direct the city's funds or resources. That's done by the council. So that's not really a power. I don't see an issue as it's presented based on the facts as I know them now.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Frank Baker.
Under the recitals, it's establishing a great brick program to recognize and honor persons, organizations, events related to the city of Bel Air Beach. And is this something more like the Indian Rocks Museum, the brick walkway, you go in there and it has anywhere from people's names to events that happen? Botanical Gardens has the same brick walk. There's a lot. Or is it just going to be like you have to do something for the city or recognize the city's past mayors or something like that? Or who's going to pay for these bricks is what I'm saying, and who's going to say this is allowed and not allowed?
So the people who fill out the application, they're paying for the bricks, right? And it's a form of raising money for the foundation to in turn positively affect the city. And then the determination is the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation. They will, I believe we put in here, it's something about positive, let's see, coordination. Do a suit without discrimination, okay, there's no discrimination. Will perform a due diligence background investigation of persons, organizations. So, yeah, it's, they're solely in charge of approving the bricks, tax, maintaining the records. So it has to be something that's approved for the positive light of the city.
And they would have the approval, not the city itself or the foundation. I'll give you an example. I want to buy a brick. God bless Bel Air. Is that going to be approved, or are we not allowed to use the word God?
Well, clearly it says they're not going to discriminate. And that the only exception is if you've been convicted of a felony and you want to put your name on it.
I'm just trying to get some clarity, because I have bricks down in IRB. They weren't, I believe it's the same foundation that authorizes it or not, but
It is not the same foundation in as much as the Bel Air Community Foundation is not partnered with that city, to my knowledge. It may be a similar model. I'm not familiar with how that program specifically operates. I would tell you, as it relates to the agreement that is before you, the way it's drafted is the initial, there is a section called brick tax exclusions, which member Shirley called out, but the way it's written, BDCF has initial editor's license, if you will. If somebody says, I don't think BDCF has made the right decision here, or I should be allowed, notwithstanding BDCF's position, that does provide a dispute mechanism where they could appeal the decision to BDCF, and BDCF representatives would meet with the city to review the original request and render a final decision on the appeal, which would be forwarded to the donor. So there is an element where if somebody says, I want this, and BDCF says no, I'm sorry, I say the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation, and they say no, that person has an opportunity to say, hey, I want the city to weigh in on this as part of the process. That's how it's designed.
so we don't have to pay for the appeal or anything like that, the city, right?
That sounds like it would be much more of an administrative hearing, with the manager perhaps sitting with a designated representative of BBCF, say, explain it to me, let's go through. There's nothing in here that contemplates a quasi-judicial hearing before a city body. It's not a city program. The city's just making its resources available to enhance the beautification and aesthetics, but it's reserving a right to participate in the process, so that, and that is a sort of a contemplated check and balance. If they are being arbitrary and capricious and are actually discriminating, oh, well, it says this, and we just don't like that, they're gonna have, and that person says, I still want this, the city's going to have an opportunity to say, no, you can't do that.
All right, thank you. Other questions or comments from the council? Board Roberts?
Kyle, so do you need a decision, or do we even get involved in which of the two placement options, or is that something you guys are just going to handle?
Wanted to get an idea from you what you thought was a better location
Okay.
for the bricks. That's why I included those.
Do you want that tonight?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you guys feel one way or the other, it'd be interesting to know.
And ultimately, what Manager Riefler is looking for is authorization to enter into the agreement.
Sure.
So as we look at this, having listened to the dialogue, if we need to make changes in that appeal language, maybe one that we revisit to make a little more specific how that's resolved, we can do that. So they'd be seeking authorization to move forward with the agreement in substantially the same form, and perhaps that design choice that you just raised.
So if we do approve this, and I think it's a good program and choice, of those two options, and I did attend, I think, one or both of those particular committee meetings, and we talked about the different things. My personal preference is the actual sidewalk. We did talk about, if we wanted to go ahead, you could actually remove one of the rectangular portions of the sidewalks there and potentially fill them in with unscribed bricks, and then as people buy them, we could take that out and then place it in there. But we would always have that one rectangular section, number of bricks in our possession, and we could move forward like that. And I think when you walk over it, you actually see it better than on the perimeter of the sidewalk. That's just my personal opinion.
Other questions or comments on this topic? No? Let's go to the citizens right quick concerning the Miller Beach Community Foundation and the agreement to place bricks. All right, well, we're back to the council, and Ms. Matera, you have the final word.
No further comments. We approve it.
So, this is to approve the agreement between the Bel Air Beach Community Foundation and the City of Bel Air Beach for an engraved brick program. I was originally just going to do a voice vote. Patty, are you satisfied with that?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agreement passes. Mr. Riefler, you are authorized to proceed.
Thank you.
Now we are on to agenda item number 21. This is for authorization to approve proposal for plan review services, which is placed on the agenda by interim city manager Riefler. This is request authorizations to contract with Madrid CPWG Services to review new building plans for compliance with city codes. Before we get started, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Louis Shirley, do I have a second?
Second.
Lloyd Roberts. All right, Vice Mayor Shirley, you have the floor.
Yeah, this is necessary that we have a reliable engineering firm to review these plans in a timely fashion. If you go to any municipality, they give you a time frame in which your plans will be reviewed, and as we stand right now, we can't do that. So Kyle needs some support from a reliable firm, and I think he can rely on CPWG to do that one.
Thank you. Who else? Other comments? Vice Mayor Gunn. Councilmember Gunn. It's going to take me a while to shake that one off.
Yeah, I had a discussion with Kyle earlier about this. This is the corporate memory thing. We dealt with this organization during the undergrounding project in DEI, and we had some issues. So I just want to reassurance that we're going to check the responsibility of due diligence in this timely, current environment of these things. Otherwise, I agree with the Vice Mayor on that. Yeah, we need this capability. We need to be able to build a contract around timeframes, and if necessary, put penalties.
Thank you. Mike Sable.
Was this a sole source? I mean, I don't see any other firms being considered, evaluated, weighed.
A little bit of history, this came from the RFQ in 2019. After receiving 8 submittals for that, we decided on the top 5 that we signed agreements with. The agreements were pretty broad, they were for miscellaneous services and plan review. From that point, this former city manager, Lynn Reeves, and I ranked those firms. We found that Larry Flew with ESG was the best choice given his history and his flat rates and what he had to bring to the table. Larry worked well with us for a couple of years after that. Like I wrote here, an unforeseen circumstance, he was no longer able to work with us. So at that point, we moved to Dual Associates, who's a firm that's been in this area for some time. And they accepted doing the plan review for an hourly rate. And then since then, they've been purchased by Seppi Engineering, and in my working with them, it's been taking a little bit longer to get plans turned around for review. My intent of this approval, this proposal, is just to reach out to another firm that was on that RFQ and provide another option that we could use. But after having a discussion with former Vice Mayor Gunn, I think that in the best interest of the city, it's about time that we went out for another RFQ. And at that point, we formalized more detailed agreements with expectations as far as timelines for the plan review.
Oh, absolutely. It should have went out for the RFQ rather than go into this, because it seems like there's no due diligence going into this person.
Or at least it's dated.
Yes, very dated.
Yes, it is.
That's what I agree with. I mean, you got 2019 based on whatever information was back there. Here we are asking to sign off because I trust this company. I don't know this company.
I guess this is what you would say a temporary mandate to try and get things moving along quicker in the interim.
Yeah, but we should do it right the first time.
Other comments? Ms. Matera.
One minor comment on the agreement on page 2, period of service 3.1. Work promptly after recipe of a fully executed copy. I think the spell check fixed you. Should have been receipt.
Which section was that in?
3.1, period of service. It's the agreement from September. I don't guess we can go back and. See that? Should have picked it, found that before.
So I guess my concern is I'm trying to find a solution, and we can continue with dual engineering firm. There is some frustration with the turnaround of the site plan review. They're in full agreement to continue doing it, but I did have a conversation with them today about opening up another option, and they were on board with that. The main engineer that I work with, Al Carrier, he said that they did something similar in Treasure Island with their backlog. They opened it up to another firm to help catch up. So I do agree with you that an RFQ is necessary in this situation. For the time period, I'm just trying to move things through without frustrating the contractors and builders.
And I have not, or I have actually heard complaints about the timeliness of the process. I do agree that we need to do a formal RFP. However, I have no problem authorizing this as a temporary solution to help you in this time of crisis. Any other comments from the council? Yes, I'll do this first.
I'll sign on to the temporary status that if we put a time frame on it. 60 days, 90 days, 120 days?
Yeah, full concurrence with that. You don't write a blank check and say, timeline. No, we're going to stop that. There must be a timeline.
I'll leave it open-ended.
Exactly.
I agree we need something interim as a Band-Aid and a stopgap measure, but so let's just put a time frame on it and I'm on board.
If I may, that feedback is well taken. I think what might be the better way is prioritizing the RFQ process rather than putting a expiration date on having additional resources. This is sort of to try to reason by analogy a lot. This is sort of buying a second wrench to keep in the toolbox, and you can use either one. I wouldn't advise that you handicap yourself by saying, well, we're only going to go back to that one wrench that's kind of working for us by date certain. If, for example, we're really working on our RFQ process and we're trying to fine tune those terms and now we've got, this is coming to an expiration date, I think that becomes a better reflection of how you folks prioritize your workflow going forward on this and holding the manager and administration accountable to where are we on getting that RFQ out. Ultimately, again, that's your decision, but I would suggest rather than limit the number of resources and their availability to you, that would be limited better by your next action rather than this action.
I understand that
Mr. Bennett.
the issue you're going to run into, though, is the RFQ process has a project timeline of its own. So you've got to put one together, it's got to go through the process, it's got to be advertised, you got to review it with that. So, I mean,
Which is why I'm saying you shouldn't say like, we're going to do this for 90 days and then find that the RFQ process takes you 120 and now you're back to only one resource for those last 30 days.
Yeah, so the RFQ process can give us a timeline, right? How long does it
Exactly,
take?
that process will
Okay,
take
so now, okay, I'm on the same page.
Precisely,
now.
yes, sir.
So how long would we need for an RFQ process to run? 90 days, 120 days?
For the RFQ process, I'd say 90 days is very uncomfortable with that.
You're comfortable with
I think I
that?
could do it in 60.
Drafting, writing,
Yeah, put it out.
putting it in, reviewing it in selection? 90 days?
90 days. Mike Zabel.
Very comfortable with the 90 days, yes.
Okay, but that's not on this. So this is something we would just have to reach a consensus on that we're moving forward with that.
Actually, I prefer not to go forward on this. I'll make a motion to table this.
Second. Okay. We have a motion to table. So let's take a vote. No, once we do a motion to table, all discussion stops. Eddie?
Councilmember Bangard,
Yes, to table.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye, table.
Councilmember Notero,
No to table.
Councilmember Roberts,
No,
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes to table.
Vice Mayor Shirley,
No.
Mayor Gaddis.
No. So the motion to table fails. Now we need to go back to the original motion. We've had our discussion. Is there anything else before I go to the citizens on this? Citizens, anyone like to speak? No? All right. We are back to the council with Vice Mayor Shirley having the last word. Oh, yes, Vice Mayor. Mr. Gunn.
Just go ahead. So I'd like to amend this thing to put a 90-day time limit on the authorization for this temporary bill pending RFQ for a full-time.
I'm hearing a motion to amend.
Second.
A second. So now this is for authorization to approve proposal for plan review services with a time limit of 90 days. Let's see, I guess we need to go back to the citizens now.
Just
Just to clarify, what I was saying, the 90-day time period, I was agreeing to the RFQ and receiving results from it, and then scoring and qualifying those firms. After that, agreements would need to be drafted. I would request a little more time to get the correct agreements in place and get the firm signed off on it.
We currently have a motion on the table to amend with 90 days. Would you like to retract that motion and alter it, or would you like to move forward with it?
Do you want to amend the amendment?
I just have a comment. I think it's, in the services agreement, there's a termination of convenience, and either party can terminate it on 30 days' notice. So I don't think we need to say it's only good for 90 days, it's covered.
I think what Mr. Gunn is trying to do is trying to make sure that we actually do what we say we're going to do. Now, that being said, we can always do another, add another agenda item, another resolution, move forward the next meeting, or we can just go ahead and commit to with a limit.
I'll restate my amendment then, to put a 120-day.
Okay.
I think
Days for what?
120-day time limit on this temporary CPWG assistance.
Motion maker is amending is electing to amend the motion from a motion to amend for 90 days to a motion to amend for seconds for a 120-day limitation. I believe it was I forget who it was, I think it was Member Banker who seconded. Member, as the individual who seconded, are you amenable to that?
Yes,
So-
I second that.
Okay, the motion to amend is amended such that it's 120 days.
okay, so now we're working on authorization to approve proposal for plan review services with a 120-day limit. We have a motion and we have a second, and now we're open for discussions. Yes, sir.
I just want to confirm, Kyle, are you comfortable with 120, or would like another 180 be 6 months be a better time period? Just want to make sure you're comfortable with it.
If I prioritize it, I can get it done.
And 120?
Okay. Other comments from the council? Let's go to the citizens. Back to the council. Vice Mayor Gunn. This is for your amendment.
Yes, sir. No longer vice mayor.
I did again. It's a hard habit to break.
Notice I didn't respond.
All right, well, that's good. All right, so let's take a vote. We're going to take a vote.
Councilmember, I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on, this is to authorize the approval, authorization to approve proposal for plan review services with a limit of 120 days. Patty?
Councilmember Bankard,
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Notero,
No?
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. And I'd like to thank everyone for passing this. I think it's going to benefit Kyle greatly. All right, we are on, we're getting there. We're on to item number 22, the moment that Victor has been waiting for all night. This is for consideration to execute service agreement with Victor help me out, Victor. Marianic, for city council meeting video recordings. This was placed on the agenda by interim city manager Riefler, pertaining to continue video recording services with current contractor. Before we have a discussion, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Frank Banker. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that one to Lloyd Roberts. Mr. Banker, you have the floor.
Well, the memorandum speaks for itself. I think he's done an excellent job, and I think we should retain him. That's it.
Other comments from the council? No comments. Let's go to the citizens. Would anyone like to speak on this agenda item? No? All right, we're back to the council again with Frank Banker having the last word.
No last word.
All right, since this is another contract, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Banker,
Yes.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Notero,
Aye.
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye, and it passes unanimously, 7-0. Congratulations, Victor. And Mr. Reaper, you may proceed. All right, now we are moving on to number 23. This is consideration of Councilmember Zabel's proposed communication procedures. This was placed on the agenda by Councilmember Zabel. Before I call for a motion, I would like to address Mr. Zabel on this, just because there's several items in one single agenda item. My recommendation is to either withdraw this agenda item or have the council make no motion on it. As it stands now, I don't think every item will pass on a single vote. However, I do believe we can move forward on some of these just by general consensus in the next work session. These are only my suggestions. If the council prefers to move forward with this now, we can proceed. So, do I have a motion to move forward with Councilmember Zabel's proposed communication procedures? Nope. All right, the motion dies, and what I would recommend is that we bring this up. It's actually not a motion to die, but the agenda item did not move forward. I recommend that in our next work session, and Mr. Riefler, if you'll go ahead and add it to the next agenda, that we take these bullet points and we discuss them.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, on that, there's actually not just those bullet points, there's actually 35, and they were attached, so we can put those on the working session. In fact, I'd rather prefer going through the working session. There's a lot here that the council's never attempted before. Got a lot of work to do on.
That works for me, and I appreciate all of your hard work and taking the time to put some sort of a directional list for us.
Well, yeah, the idea is you don't come to you with a problem, you come with a solution.
All right, now we are on to the added agenda item number 24, which is concerning the city manager search. There's really nothing to vote on this. It's going to be a discussion item just to kind of roll this into unfinished business. This was brought forth by Vice Mayor Shirley, and I will hand the floor over to you.
Mayor, with all respect to Member Shirley, if I may, just by way of update, at the last meeting, I was tasked with reaching out to the FLC and its resources. We played some phone tag in the lead up to Ian and had a communication breakdown as far as, on my end, as far as follow-up through Ian. Member Shirley astutely followed up with me earlier today. I spoke with the representative from the Senior Advisor Program. That is its current moniker. If you've heard Road Rangers or Council Advisors in the past, the new brand is Senior Advisor, but we're talking about the same thing there. I've worked with their local representative, Ms. Pam Brancacho, in other communities, and I had a call with her this afternoon or late morning. In speaking with her, I explained the current state of the landscape, that you've done a recruitment, extensive citizen input, extensive review, had a candidate, it fell through. She was tangentially aware of it. She was also familiar and had worked with Mr. Reeves in the past. And I explained that interim manager Riefler has been working in the position for a few months, and while individual members might differ on what the best step is to go forward. There was a general consensus to say, let's take a beat, reevaluate where we are, see if perhaps the situation is working enough that we should meaningfully entertain it, or provide Manager Riefler additional resources to ensure his success, or that he has the resources to make that success an option for him, if you will. In speaking with the senior advisor, I floated, based on the general discussion that I heard at the last meeting, the idea of perhaps her sitting down with Manager Riefler, getting acquainted personally, sitting with a representative of the council, maybe the mayor, or I'm sure whomever you folks deem appropriate, to get the sort of the legislative perspective on this, the legislative branch's perspective, and just based on her experience, coming to your next meeting, which I believe is November 7th, which works well with, she's got an extensive travel schedule, and she's already penciled in, if the council so desires, to attend the next meeting, and based on efforts made in the next few weeks, provide you some recommendations going forward, whether that be, here's what you can do through ICCMA and trainings and otherwise, and what that calendar of events look like, whether it's, I do think you may wish to go about a search, and this is what that process could look like if you wish to work with senior advisors or otherwise, but giving you a read. The general, I will tell you that the consensus in most leadership positions is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and ultimately, if it ain't broke, is a determination for you folks to make. I'm not opining on that by saying that, but ultimately, if Manager Riefler is working out for you, obviously destabilizing leadership is never preferable. The one point that she and I did discuss was how the council would wish to handle the fact that Interim Manager Riefler is holding multiple positions. I'm sorry, Kyle, I know it's like sort of weird to talk to you, but she is like a distant entity when we're like holding hands here. But her one point of insistence was, if that is the direction, both for the success of the community and the success of the candidate, both parties are going to have to decide, from Manager Riefler's desire, if he's going to be made interim manager with a contract, recognizing that he leaves behind the comfort of employment versus at-will employment in a charter position, and also just whether or not there are means to backfill his position on an ongoing basis, his past position, if that is a past position. Just recognizing you're going to have resource needs to make sure all needs are met. I'm not telling you anything that hasn't been said about 4 different ways over the course of this meeting. But that is where things stand. So my inquiry to you, in as much as I was delegated or designated as a liaison for that resource, is, would you like me to ask on behalf of the council for her to engage in that sort of process or some permutation there?
I think that we're looking for direction, and probably could use some help. So I'm only one person. I'd like to hear what other council members have to say, beginning with Vice Mayor Shirley, since she added this to the agenda.
Yeah, so I reached out to our attorney Moore today regarding this issue, knowing that we need to make some decisions. I can tell you that I think we asked Kyle how he was doing at one of our work sessions, and he said he's hanging on. And we've got to make some decisions one way or the other, get some assistance in getting help. He can't continue to work the way he is. And we need to come up with a solution and a plan on how we're going to move forward. It can't be ignored. We can't have a meeting go by without this being top of this discussion and having an outline, and whatever that looks like, whether it's appointing someone on council to spearhead it, if something needs to happen to move forward.
Thank you. Other comments from the council? Yes, Frank Baker.
Well, a little over a week ago, we were facing a Cat 2 or Cat 3 hurricane. This man's been our interim city manager now since June. I think he's been flawless. I don't know what more this council wants out of this man. He's doing 3 jobs sometimes. Gave up his weekend, he gave up his family to service the city, gave up his home to put our city first. What more do we want out of him? I think we should go into contract talks right now with this man, and he's the best candidate for this city. He's dedicated, he's a hard worker. Hey, if We want to get him a little bit more education, fine, put it in a contract that he has to do something like that or whatever, fulfill these goals, you know? But let's stop this process. I recommended him the second week of, or third week of March. It's now, what, 7 months later, and we still don't have an interim city manager. It would have been a joke if we would have paid $180-some thousand for that other guy to come here. He would have never filled one sandbag last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Other comments?
I totally agree with what Frank just said. I think we need to change our search to finding a public works director.
Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to work with Kyle very closely on a couple of projects and meetings that we've had. The most recent was when we went over code enforcement. And I can tell you that the time that I've been here and got to know Kyle more and actually see his expertise and knowledge and how he deals with things, I have moved the meter in my own mind with respect to, is he the best candidate? I currently feel he is, and here's my personal feeling. You know, all the criteria that somebody's going to have that's going to be our city manager, from a score of 1 to 10, I don't think anybody is going to be a 10 in all the categories. I'm confident there's several criteria that Kyle, because of his working knowledge of our city and the time that he's been here, he's going to beat pretty much anybody on those type of categories that we're going to bring in from the outside. It's just logical. That's the way it's going to be. There's probably some other things that Kyle may not, meet the standard of some other people that we might bring in some other categories. But I think any of those categories, Kyle, like any of us, would get better. I think back in my career, I was put in high leadership positions, and I guarantee you, when I got that opportunity, went home that night, didn't sleep very well, because I knew there were some things I needed to be better at. And as my time in those positions, I grew in those opportunities, just like any of us would do and will do. So I'm confident now, having the additional time with Kyle and seeing him work and understand things, that he has my support.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Gunn.
I'm on board with everything that's been said. I'll ask a couple questions here because my observations are Kyle can do the job. And when it comes to motivation and dedication, we're not going to find that. The differences in what we would have paid some of the other high-powered people, we can buy or outsource the expertise we might fall short on. I would like to continue to see Kyle self-develop and start positioning himself for maybe some future higher responsibility or something like that. In the interim, I think he's our guy, and I just need to make sure that Kyle's comfortable with that, because you're going to sign up for it, serve at the pleasure of the council, we backfill behind you, and that may have some repercussions. But you have my trusted confidence. I think you can do it, and the question is do you share that opinion with me?
Yeah, to answer your question, again, when I first applied for this position, it was something that a responsibility and a risk that I accepted, and I believe that's the step into taking a position of leadership. We work for 7 different council members. It's a lot of work. It's constantly adjusting and improving yourself, and it's what I wanted. So, yeah, the answer is yes.
I think we've had a great observation period, high-end, high-tempo ops, surge operations, whatever you want. He's measured up really well. So I'm all for making it a permanent position and backfilling and giving him the resources he needs to do his job appropriately. That's my.
Thank you. Mike Sable.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we direct Attorney Mora to draft a contract for Mr. Kyle Riefler, move him from interim to full-time, and enter negotiations.
Second.
Okay. You're making a motion to draft a contract to move forward with Kyle as the city.
Absolutely, everything I've seen so far, worked with him side by side, he's got it. With our support, he can succeed. We do have backups. We have professional people that can enter into this and work with him. We cannot move forward on his previous position until we lock him down to this one. Once we lock him down to this one, we sign contracts, we come to mutual terms. At that point, we open the search for his replacement. But as far as time, let's get moving on this.
We have a motion on the table. Would anyone like to comment? I think we haven't heard anything from Vice Mayor Shirley. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, I opened the conversation up. You know, the caveat was trying to get Kyle some help. I do agree he's probably would be great in the job. I do feel strongly that a senior advisor coming on board to assist him, to give him guidance, to mentor him would be a huge benefit. I don't like to keep having these conversations that we can move forward with Kyle. I don't know what that, you know, absolutely what that would look like, but I do know that we need to move forward in some manner and getting this off our plate so we're not revisiting it constantly and it's not being pushed under the rug. So if it's moving forward with contracts, I'm fine with that if everyone's in agreement. I am open to suggestions that we don't have this conversation again and we have a commitment on how we're moving forward.
Thank you. I've wrestled with this for a while, and as time goes on, I've become more and more impressed with you, Mr. Riefler. I think you've stepped up to the plate. You've done things that I thought for sure would be way out of your wheelhouse, but you keep pleasantly surprising me. I was hoping we had a little more time, but it looks like the will of the council is to move forward with this. Before we take a vote on this motion, I'm going to have to go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to comment? Let's start with the fire chief.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Davidson, your fire chief. I'm not a resident of Bel Air Beach, but I wanted to share my experience with Kyle recently here in preparations with Hurricane Ian. And Kyle and I were in constant communication with each other in everything that we did with preparations, and he actually even reached out to see if he could be at our emergency operations center for the duration of the storm so that he could be here as close as possible to Bel Air Beach because he lives pretty far away. And normally we don't have community leaders in the emergency operations centers as we run an emergency and throughout and for the after effects. But that was Kyle. We made arrangements for him to do that. Thankfully, Ian took a turn. We prayed for those who get affected. But that was Kyle's dedication to the city of Bel Air Beach. And we made those arrangements for him, and thankfully he didn't have to be there, but he did above and beyond. And let me share my last experience, professional experience. We had an interim city manager that did an outstanding job. And everybody urged the council to hire that person, and they decided to go with somebody who had more experience as a city manager. And that person didn't last 6 months. And now the person who they originally recommended is the city manager permanently. I just wanted to just share my experience of what a professional Kyle has been in representing your city and your citizens. Thank you for your time.
Chief Davidson, how did you know to be here tonight?
Well, I was actually here last Monday, and I So, no, I want to be at your meetings. I was going to be here earlier. I came in late, but I had another meeting to be at. But I'm glad that I was able to be here and give in my 2 cents there.
Thank you for your comments. They're greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
John Hansick.
John Hansick, 22nd Street. I have watched this opera of sorts for a very long time from the beginning. I've been involved in it on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Kyle was in the top 4 or 5 recommendations from the CAC. And unbeknownst to the committee, you guys got to pick somebody. That's fine. I'm here to concur with everybody and state Councilmember Zabel's motion is long overdue. I remember sitting here going through, listening to y'all at a work session. And again, the same council member made some suggestions, recommendations that Kyle was agreeable to when he was finally a member of the conversation. He also understood the consequences if he accepted and was hired on as city manager and he backfilled with a public works director. Now, I've sat here and listened to everybody tonight. Let's vote, let's get a contract. That's your man, that's our man. Thank you.
Any other comments from the citizens? All right, we're back to the council with Mike Zabel having the last word. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Victor, I'm sorry. You're always over there hiding behind a camera.
I've been working with the city for a long time, since Nancy Gonzalez was a city manager, and then we had our former city manager, and Kyle was working closely with all the projects, and he's done a fantastic job. And as a contractor, I've seen like no change in communication, or everything's been presented very well from council, also in support of him. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? All right, now we're back to the council with Mike Zabel having the final word.
Okay. Yeah, again, it's been a long process. We've done our due diligence. Kyle and I work very tight together. In fact, we're working on Parkmobile right now. We could probably save the city about $2,000 a year, which is kind of cool. But he has my strongest recommendation at this point. I want to move ahead, vote on this, work out a contract, hopefully negotiate it to the satisfaction of both parties and move on.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go to a vote. This is very important vote, so Patty, you should do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bankard,
Yes, to proceed to a contract.
Councilmember Gunn,
I proceed.
Councilmember Notero,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes, proceed.
Vice Mayor Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye, so it passes unanimously.
Your direction is clear. I will provide, I will prepare the draft for Mr. Riefler's review. I'll say it in public venues, and in addition to saying privately, while you and I work together on a regular basis, as I send you drafts, you are free to have your own independent attorney review for your rights and interests. I will represent the city, its council, in that process. And that doesn't change that we're still, cool. I just have to make that clear. And so with that, I will proceed. Obviously, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm also not going to be using all the same terms. I'll take into account what this body has talked about. Member Shirley, to your point, when you talk about the idea of moving forward with Mr. Riefler is not incongruent with the idea of using and making resources available to him through that process. And I can also look at metrics much in the same way that the previous contract had goals. If this council, as we go through that drafting process, has goals different from or in addition to or the same as what had been in that, I believe it was Exhibit B to that contract, that you think should be specific to Member Riefler, please let me know. We can take those into account, Manager Riefler, and we'll work forward with that. But and if after a draft is initially circulated, you folks feel we need a workshop or something else particular to that, we can of course accommodate appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Mora, and I'm assuming that once an agreement is reached, then it will be up to Mr. Riefler to hire his replacement. Is that correct?
At that stage, he will be your chief administrative officer, as he is now, but with a very clear mandate that he is to fully occupy that office. At that point, in a manager form of government, he will have all the powers to hire and fire as necessary, which would include identifying his successor. The only reason I'm speaking in those vague terms is he's going to have to decide what personnel needs he has as the manager and how to prioritize filling those positions, and I'm not going to dictate which position would be first or in what order.
Thank you very much for that clarification. All right, so now we are on to agenda item 25, unfinished business. And we're actually doing pretty good. It's only 9 o'clock. Any unfinished business?
Can I bring up something that needs to be considered soon? Just a couple of questions. I guess planning and zoning. Who's our chair for the planning and zoning board? Does anyone know?
J.C. Infeld.
They never show up for the quarterly reports. So we maybe need to consider making some changes with that board. We've done it in the past, so this may be a time we need to step in and make some changes, because we do, in 2023, need to revisit our comprehensive plan, and we need a team that's really going to be interested in doing so. So just being proactive.
That's good advice, and I concur.
Can I add to that? Perhaps we talked to the attorney. I mean, this is not an unknown occurrence for this council. The previous council had problems when they dismissed a member of a committee. Can we just double check with the attorney, make sure that we're crossing all our T's and dotting all our I's on this case?
I wasn't fully following that conversation. I understood it as this needs to be something we talk about in the near term. I didn't understand it as a vote to terminate a member's membership on the board in this moment. If I misunderstood that, please let me know. If we were to terminate a member, I'd like to talk about due process concerns and going through that for certain. And ultimately, the board designates its own chair and vice chair typically. If the board is not satisfied with its chair, it can deal with that, and I think it'd be best to let them govern in that manner, and if we feel that somebody is not fulfilling their obligations, we can revisit that discussion. I think it's prudent to raise the issue and say, I'd like this on the radar, as we have, by way of example, I told you earlier in the night that I'd be circulating sign code as I have a draft. That's something that will go before your planning and zoning board. Ultimately, most likely, I've advised the manager of such, so those sorts of things would come forward. But I would say appropriate to raise it as a concern. I would not want to unceremoniously announce and make that decision this evening, and I don't think that's what was being proposed.
My recommendation is always to reach out to the person that we're having an issue with before it ever comes to that level of some sort of a course correction. Any other unfinished business? All right. Now we are on to council comments. This month, we're going to go in computer-generated random order. Except, now that we have a new vice mayor, she must go for me. So that being said, Councilmember Natero, you have the floor.
No comments?
Councilmember Roberts.
Congratulations, Jody, and Kyle, I bet you didn't think tonight when you came to this meeting that this was going to happen. So congratulations to you. You've done a great job. Yeah, I think just one thing about emergency management. Our city does not have an emergency management director, nor should it. We're not big enough for that. Pinellas County has an emergency management director. And those are the people we as a city should rely on every time. When we talk about information and videos that are available, 100% guaranteed, and I haven't even looked at it. I guarantee you their website under emergency management would have all of that data and all of that information that we would ever need. And that's the way it should be set up. Those people are full-time emergency management people. Every day of the year, they have a large staff. That's what they do. We need to use them. They're a tremendous resource. Just want to make sure that that's where we go. We can't take on all of those responsibilities within our city. We're not big enough. We don't have the people or the manpower or woman power to do that. So use the resources, use Pinellas County Emergency Management, and we would be much better off for that, guaranteed.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Now we're up to Councilmember Gunn.
One thing I'd like to remember is that some of these issues that we're having a tough time deciding what the will of the residents are, or whatever, maybe it's time to just put some of this stuff on the ballot and go to referendum. That adds a legitimacy to the whole thing, and has the will of the people, has the will of the people. Just a suggestion, it costs money, but maybe that's how you slice it according or not.
Thank you. Now we're to Councilmember Banker.
Well, I recommended Mr. Riefler back in March of this year, and the majority of the council decided to go forward with the search. And I further was the only one that voted for you, Kyle, when we narrowed the candidates down to 7 people. After that, city manager contract negotiations washed out, which I don't know how much money we paid you, Mr. Moore, during negotiations and everything like that. 2 more times I recommended that by motion that we give this man a contract and move forward. I guess finally tonight, the council stepped aside from the tree and saw the forest before him and all the work he's done. Congratulations. Well deserved. I think you've been insulted in the last 7 months by this council, and I feel bad for you and your family, but congratulations for tonight. Furthermore, this city escaped under God's will the Category 2 or 3 hurricane. I hope we all gave thanks to him. That's all.
Member Banker, in understanding you were making a rhetorical point, I just want to make clear that tempting though it may have been, all of the negotiations were within the retainer. Because I had joined the process in progress, I did not think it appropriate to make it a special matter.
Thank you. We could have used your services on other things.
Councilmember Zabel.
Yeah, congratulations to Councilman Shirley on that election. I'm truly humbled by some of the citizens' comments about me, but we're all working to support the council as a whole. And toward that, I recommend council, we've never had a procedure like this before, where actually citizens' comments, I mean, I'm reaching out to 611 people out there, and they're coming back with great suggestions that have never been marked down. What I've done is taken everyone, assigned them to the strategic plan, and I'm going to place those in front of the council. So if you got time, council members, please look through those. Those are basically about 7 pages, over 35 items that the citizens have felt strongly about, and they deserve to know what we're doing about those, status, and how we're going to move on in the future. But that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Zabel. Now we are on to Vice Mayor Shirley.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for supporting me. Very humbled by it, and I will continue to support the city and the citizens. And, Kyle, I didn't open this meeting up tonight, thinking that my change in the agenda would bring you to negotiating, but I'm glad we're able to bring you help because you look tired and you look like you need help. So I'm thankful for everything you've done and happy that that's how it turned out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I would like to thank all city staff members for their hard work while preparing for the storm of the century. I'd also like to thank Councilmember Mike Zabel and Frank Baker and others who assisted with sandbags. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day drama on Nextdoor and Facebook. But in the end, we should realize that we are all neighbors and should treat each other as such. Our situation could have made a severe turn for the worst. Thankfully, we were spared and our beautiful community lives on. I'd like to congratulate Interim City Manager Riefler. I hope that you're able to come to an agreement and serve us well. I would also like to thank Councilmember Gunn for his time as Vice Mayor. And I would also like to congratulate Vice Mayor Shirley for stepping up and assuming that position. As always, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight and to those for attending at home. With that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Frank Baker. Seconded by Leslie Montero. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?